Raging atheist.
I did a 24-hour streaming on Twitch.
We are live.
That's impressive.
We are live. Welcome, Earthlings. I just set up a Twitter account the other day, and it asked me to put some information in about myself, and I put in there that I'm a resident of Earth. That was all I put down. Welcome to the Great Debate Community YouTube channel. I'm John Peterson, or as I am affectionately known by some people and not so affectionately known by other people, Horseface, in reference to my YouTube avatar. Yes, it's John Peterson, not Steve McRae. We're pulling a bait and switch on you tonight. And to start with, I want to thank Steve McRae for giving me management duties here on the GDC channel. And tonight, we're starting out with four of my favorite people, and haven't known any of them all that long, but already they're four of my favorite people. We have the Raging Atheist and Mr. Nicholas Suter, Dave McGinnis, and Cheshire Vic. The reason we're here tonight, we're going to start out with something a little light to begin with, and then we will get to the topic of discussion that was in the title a little later. But to start with, we're going to learn about a new channel that Dave McGinnis and Cheshire Vic are going to be launching sometime this year. And that's called the Slippery Slope channel. After we talk about that, we will touch on, there's an issue this week that's been in the news. You probably noticed a lot of states are passing some crazy abortion laws. I want to touch on that. And then we will get to the title discussion. When does criticism become bigotry? Or does it ever become bigotry? Once we get to the discussion portion, we'll be bringing other people in if they want to come in. Now, the thing is, I'm new to this. This isn't my channel. It's Steve McRae's. So I or someone in the stream must know you for you to be able to come in and join us, because I don't want to bring somebody in I don't know and have something untoward happen on Steve's channel. So without further ado, let's get to Dave and Cheshire to talk about the Slippery Slope channel. And now you just go ahead, whichever one of you wants to just give us a little thumbnail about that channel, and we'll take it from there.
You want to go first, David? You're the bard.
Oh, the bard. Well, yeah, we're going to be starting a new show called the Slippery Slope Show, and it will be a animated sort of sketch-style comedy show that teaches about the different logical fallacies that are there and make some jokes about them, and also maybe how to deal with or address them. And we're going to have a ton of awesome guests on. We're talking to a bunch of people. They'll all appear in awesome animated form. Everybody from the Raging Atheist, who's here in the room, and I think Nick is going to be on as well at some point. But we've got Aaron Raw and Rachel Oates lined up, and a whole bunch of interesting people.
I have affirming the consequent. I already planted my flag on that one.
Oh, you want that fallacy specifically, do you?
I was asked for my favorite. I will do whichever one is best of service to you and the channel. But I was asked my favorite, and that was the one So
it's almost like we're probably going to address one of them more than once.
That's probably the case.
Even do more than one of them.
I'll put that out there. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just give me time to research, because I'm kind of dumb.
Oh, you won't even need to do all that research. It'll be scripted and everything. So
he doesn't trust us. He needs to do research to make sure our script is accurate.
Yes.
I'm glad to see it. Oh, go ahead, Cheshire. Go ahead.
I would specify that the thoughts and concerns and opinions of the characters on this show do not necessarily represent
the voice actors. Yeah.
All I was going to say is I was glad to see Nick back. I was beginning to think his avatar was an empty room. Now, this is for either one of you. how did you come up with the idea for this channel?
We're assholes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, fair,
It probably doesn't hurt that Cheshire is like a great artist.
Thank you.
okay.
I'm a mediocre animator.
Fair enough. I guess we'll go to the next question. They're both assholes. All right. No, but seriously, what gave the idea to do this?
Well, I mean, we ran through a number of ideas because we were planning on working on a project anyway. But after co-producing the Non Sequitur show for the past year, you hear a lot of dumb arguments and a lot of fallacies thrown around pretty loosely, and a lot of people calling out fallacies that aren't fallacies. And we decided, you know what, maybe there's a lighthearted, fun way that people can learn and, you know, not be idiots. So we decided to make a program to help with that.
I find a lot of the community can get really frustrated and really caustic really quickly with each other, with other people, with people you don't agree with. And we kind of wanted to be able to bring everybody in, and just because, you know, at the end of the day, we're all a bunch of monkeys.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
We are monkeys.
Hairless monkeys.
And real quick too, I wanted to ask both of you, can you give us a little bit of a description about your background? I know you're both artists of one form or another. I've been all over Cheshire Vic's, different platforms, and I see some of the artwork she's done. Dave, you shared some artwork with me on Discord there, but like, what are your qualifications, I guess, as far as going into this project?
You want to go first on that, Vic?
Sure, yeah. I don't have any. I didn't go to school for art. I'm entirely self-taught. I spent a bunch of money one time on a tablet. Spent a lot of time practicing. I work about 98% of my time because I work a full-time night shift job, 40 hours a week. So I spend any free time from that doing art, and anytime I'm not doing art, I'm at work. So it's kind of a little bit of jumping around. I dropped out of college and university. I did finish high school. But other than that, it's most of my qualifications are practicing doing it and learning how to communicate.
And you're really good. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I'm an artist myself. Like, I can draw. You're good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I also dropped out of arts-related college at one point. I took applied communication arts, graphics design, and animation way back in the day, and decided it was way too expensive for things I was already doing and making money doing, so I wasn't going to spend any more money at school. Went into communication, counseling, and linguistics, and subsequently into marketing. Worked with several companies. Running marketing campaigns, doing promotional videos, and infographics and animated sequences and different things like that, and music production, sound production. Worked in with a few bands on different things. Just generally jack of all trades.
Well, it doesn't seem to have affected you guys that you both dropped out of those, because from what I've seen.
I didn't know that about David. Like, I've seen him on a few live streams, and I just figured he was a smart guy.
Education does not equal intelligence.
No, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I actually got in a conversation with Dr. Josh about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So coming out of the gate, what topics are you going to touch on?
Oh boy.
Well, let me pull up the joke roster.
So let's see. Bertrand Russell gets a letter from a solipsist. He says, why is it nobody else agrees with me?
I know Bertrand Russell.
We're going to be doing a couple things, so we'll probably take some pretty obvious things off the bat. Probably the first episode will be on the slippery slope, and since it's the name of the show.
There you go.
But we will be doing probably a few of the more well-known fallacies as well that get misapplied like ad homs and things like that.
Very specifically want to make sure people understand there's a difference between an ad hominem attack and an insult.
I'm really good at insults.
Or you mean an ad hominem fallacy and an insult?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But after that, we'll probably be honestly collecting community feedback to see which fallacies would be best. Probably taking votes from patrons and stuff like that, and then planning the order of the shows based on popular demand to some extent, unless we decide that we just want to do something different. But we'll be taking some cues from the community, and then we have to go into like scripting, and then after scripting starts, then you have to update your assets and the different components that are going to be required to be able to finish the episode, contact guests, get all the recordings and audio, edit that together, do the Foley work, then do an animatic, then complete all the final cuts for the animation, go to compositing. It's a full process. So like it's not going to be clip art that moves around the screen and changes the face every couple frames.
So like the most important question I have is, will I be able to use the avatar you make for me after you make it? Will I be able to use it for my own purposes?
No, don't touch it. It's mine.
Hey, just real quick, I want to say hi to Dr. Misha Griffith in the live chat there, and I see she posted a little bit ago that I guess over on Non-Sector, did the moon landing happen debate has
I haven't got to watch it. I've been live streaming all night. I'm gonna have to watch it.
Gone on a little longer than they thought. But now, for either one of you, is the idea of this channel, is it sheerly for entertainment, or do you see it as an educational tool as well?
I would call it edutainment.
What's that?
I would call it edutainment.
Edutainment, okay.
Well, I mean,
what do you say? What do you say,
real quick, John? I'm sorry. Like for a person like me, this channel is going to be really informative, because I don't really go by fallacies. I just kind of go by gut. So to have somebody sit here and spend episodes on explaining the different types of fallacies to a person like me is going to be invaluable, even if it's entertaining. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I would consider it, like, we may not dive in super deep on every topic because, limited time takes a lot of time to animate stuff. So it'll be condensed. And when you condense things, really kind of jam pack them in, and you're hitting people with a lot of information, I think one of the better ways to do that is through humor, right?
But you'll still get like a layman's definition.
Yeah, everything should still be in the episodes. It'll just be covered over the course of a month. So the beginning of the month will probably most likely start out with, we're tossing around one or two different ideas about how we actually want to lay the month out. We're either going to start off by telling you the fallacy, or we're not going to tell you till the end. So you're going to get to guess and figure out what fallacy we're doing.
I think I like the second one better.
I was joking, by the way, Raging. I don't see why you wouldn't be allowed to use it, and maybe it can even move on your show once in a while.
That's what I'm looking forward to. I look forward to being a cartoon. I mean, nobody takes me seriously anyway. I figured just have the cartoon face to go with it.
Oh yeah, no, everybody's gonna be receiving like a little custom version of the avatar and stuff that they can use on their channels. As long as we can
going off what you were talking about a minute or two ago, Dave, it almost seems to me like doing an animated show seems to be a bit more work than if you were just going to do live videos. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is why I've been waiting on Dark Matter 2025 for a month now.
Yeah, most of it is basically any of the animation you're going to see. It's, for the most part, every asset has been drawn by hand. So every time the mouth is open wide, open a little bit, open outwards, all of that is done individually. All of those mouth flaps have all been drawn.
Yeah, we're not like just dropping some art into like crazy talk and letting it figure things out for us. It's all like, properly hand keyed. So, as with all animation, you cheat to save time where you can to some extent.
Well, I know that little clip that you shared with me on Discord, and then after the fact, you brought up a screen and showed me like the the tool, the computer tool you use to create that, and just the intricacies of putting even that short clip together just kind of blew my mind. I mean, all the things you have to do. It just seems like it'd be a lot easier just to turn your phone on and do a live video, you know?
Yeah, that wouldn't be fun.
Live streams are always the easiest. I mean, that's no joke.
I just got one more question for the two of you. Is like, what's your process, and like between the two of you, like what different hats do each of you wear in getting getting one of these videos done? Like, do you have different tasks that you each handle to put it together, or how does that go?
Well, I start off. Usually we decide a little bit kind of what the direction's going to be in sort of like a group chat. Then I hit the ground running and get whatever assets we need. So backgrounds and character designs, any positions that character is going to be in, whether that's front facing, side facing, quarter facing, lip flaps for the character if they need individual lip flaps, individual hands if they need individual hands, any kind of clothing changes that need to happen, and then any kind of setting changes that also need to happen. Any assets like, oh, they're holding a cup. Oh, they put the cup down, so we need the cup, and we need the cup in the hand, and we need the cup wherever the cup's going to be. We need just the cup. So that starts with me. Then it kicks over to David.
Yeah, so then I would be taking those assets and basically going through, doing all the final line art, setting up all the color models, doing all the point animation, rigging the art so that it can be as a reusable asset. So everything has its own parameters to switch on and off, like say different layers, or to be able to bend certain things, make sure that they don't go looking all funky when they're bending. Any keyframe, like frame by frame animation that'll need to be done, gets done at that time. So then once the assets are created, and we have our script, which is going separately the whole time, we're all back and forth on the writing. Once a section is written, then it gets scripted out for voicing. Then we bring in anybody that needs to record the voicing, get takes on that, edit it together, get any sound effects and stuff like that in. That gets exported out. Then we go into doing what's called an animatic, which is sort of just like an animated slideshow that's timed out to the sound. And then that acts as a reference for all of the assets. Then we bring in all the assets and use those to animate out all the scenes in the animatic. And then those get exported out into After Effects. Everything gets composited, lighting, any special effects, fades, all that kind of stuff gets handled in post.
David, people are asking for your Twitter handle.
Twitter handle.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. Anybody, any of you guys, feel free to post links to your channel in the live chat there, and then once this we get done with this tonight, I'll put all your channel links in the video description or in the comments section on this video.
Well, and David, like, do I have you on my Twitter? That's my new obsession.
Well, it's at David McGinnis _42.
I'll have to look at David McGinnis.
If you go to the Slippery Slope Twitter, that's mostly where samples are visibly available.
Right,
yeah,
so
going up there. We're still early pre-production on some assets. We're still building certain things out. We're still refining. So before the show launches, we're going to be doing a pre-episode sort of trailer kind of thing that goes over what the show will be, and that'll probably launch over on Nonstack, maybe Aaron Ra's channel as well. He's going to be in there. Digital Hammurabi's going to be in that.
Oh yeah, that's my people.
Somehow you've got to work in Dr. Josh's Hovind impersonation.
That's
what he's coming to do.
Yep.
Dr. Josh and Arn Rob both have great Hovind impersonations.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm all done with any questions I had. Nick or Nakasuchi, do either of you have questions for our other two fine guests here?
My question, for one, is like, Cheshire, your homework is to give me the link on Twitter to your Slippery Slope Twitter, whatever.
It's Twitter.com/Slope Show.
I'm really looking forward to this channel. I don't know why. I think it's because I like Cheshire so much, and I've really liked you, David. I've actually seen you a lot longer than Cheshire, and so I'm really looking forward to this, and it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be something that I can add into my routine of YouTube videos that I can watch.
That is the goal. If people know theists who would also be willing to come on and be either themselves or other voices or whatever, please let them know to come to us, because
I'll talk to
we're
some
not
people.
just going to be picking on anybody in particular.
I'll talk to some people. I have quite a few itching to get on my show. So.
There you go.
I know one
imagine,
theist.
people like Sidegard and some of the others might.
Well, I know
pop in.
one theist you can have on that is just a master of all trades, and he's great at everything, and he's never lost a debate. Is have Sky out on? I'm sure.
Yeah, I was thinking of talking to Sky out for you.
So, Nick, do you have any questions before we move on?
I have no questions. I am in awe of the undertaking, because I think that, you know, they're sort of just talking about it, but the idea of actually putting it together, and I love big vision projects and starting new stuff. So I think I'm really looking forward to it too. I mean, I'm really looking forward to participating. I'm looking forward to like seeing myself in animation and doing the voice. I couldn't be more thrilled, but I also just think it's a great idea, and I've seen a lot of Cheshire's art, and you know, we've been talking some shop on that front on Twitter, and it's just been an absolute blast. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, you know, that brings up another question. Is okay. So, say you put a 2-minute animated video together.
Mhm.
How much total time, you know, just ballpark production time is there in just like a 2-minute video, animated video?
depends on what's happening in the animation, really. But ballpark, if you've got, say, 3 on-screen characters and 2 minutes of time, lip sync, backgrounds, compositing, the actual animation, no less than probably 40 hours.
If
Oh,
we're allowed to work
wow.
on it, and that's the only thing we're working on, we can bang it out in a week.
Yeah.
But
That's just crazy.
the thing with animation, and one of the nice things about animation and the program that we're using to do the animation, is that once we have an asset, we have it forever.
Yeah.
So once we have flip flaps for
So,
like
because we have 3 regular hosts on the show.
Yeah.
Who's the third?
Time, probably.
G-Man.
Yeah,
G-Man.
G-Man, according to yeah.
It's not G-Man.
Not G-Man.
G-Man's already a cartoon.
We've actually
I'm like, do not make me go on Dragnot server.
we were actually discussing that the other day, because we were talking about getting people as guests, and obviously G-Man would be hilarious, but then we decided that interacting with that could be its own nightmare, so we decided to use G-Man's cat.
The G.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
Hey, so before we move on, Cheshire, did you want to try that idea we were talking about the other day?
I think we should test that before we try to do it live.
Okay, all right. Maybe next time then.
John is new to YouTube. He doesn't understand these things.
Well,
We'll test it next time.
we were gonna maybe get a suggestion from the audience and then have Cheshire draw something on the spot. But
I
Maybe-
do have
maybe
a
next time.
suggestion for Cheshire and David. When you do me, you have to do a white Native American full of rage.
So will people be asking what makes the red man red?
What makes the red man white?
I am also a white Native American, so I
well,
understand.
depending on how much raging is raging, he does get redder.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
true.
what we're gonna probably end up doing. Oh, let me see if I can pull the clip up.
Your character
He'll
will
start-
get increasingly
true.
red as the show goes on.
He'll start the animation out pure white, and by the end of it, he'll be beat
He'll
red.
probably end up looking something like this link right here if you click that one in the chat.
Okay.
All right, let me look at it. No, I don't know if I want to look at it actually.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that again, the name of that channel is the Slippery Slope channel. Please go over there and sub.
Show.
Or the Slippery Slope Show.
Don't break my alliteration.
And David mentioned in live chat over on Non-Sec that he needs a few more subs to get some different features from YouTube. I went over there and subbed for the Great Debate Community channel. When I left over there, he needed 10 more subs to get up to 100 to have access to those features he wanted. So please go over and give them a sub.
Who was that? I'm sorry, John. Who was that? Who needs the subs?
Say that again.
Who needs the subs?
Who needs the subs?
The Slippery Slope Show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That should be.
We're trying to get to 100 so we can have a real URL, so it's not just numbers and letters.
I mean, the nice part is, even though they haven't put out any content yet, you go over there and you sub now, and then as soon as something comes out, you'll get that notification. You'll be able to watch
our soft launch date is going to be September.
September, okay.
Yeah,
I'll put it
some like features that show up ahead of time. So like little mini trailers and little mini jokes popping up here and there. So keep an eye out for those on some of your favorite channels and also on that one.
Maybe we may do it some like live streams. Like once we're in like more full production, we'll probably start doing some live streams, behind the scenes stuff, so you can see the making of the show and all that kind of fun stuff as well.
Oh, that'll be great.
Might be a Patreon feature. Not sure yet, or we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'll definitely put a note up so I can promote your show every time I go on a live stream or on somebody else's channel, because for some reason people want to talk to me.
We're gonna end up doing the new avatar for Raging Atheist.
And that's one live stream you've got to do is you've got to do the making of Nakasuchi after you.
Oh, I am actually planning a video for something like that because I get that question so fucking much.
All right, so let's move on. I want to touch on before we get to the title discussion. I do want to touch on this abortion issue. You know, as you saw this week, Alabama and Missouri have passed some pretty stringent abortion laws. Before that, I believe Georgia passed some laws. And before I say anything about it or anybody says anything about it, I want to give the floor to Cheshire. She is the only female in the room right now, and this is all
sexist, John.
So, excuse me.
Are you being sexist?
Are you assuming Cheshire's gender?
Unless my eyeballs deceive me.
Here we go.
Unless my eyeballs deceive me, yes. But I mean, it's a woman's rights issue, and before us men weigh in, and I want to hear what the young lady has to say.
Precisely. Go for it.
It's a shit show and it's stupid. I don't know what more you're looking for. Like, this is a goddamn nightmare. It's a travesty of a bill, and it's a real issue of religion making its way into politics where it doesn't fucking belong.
That's the primary issue here.
I mean, plain and simple, is limiting abortion also limiting the civil rights of women?
Well, yeah, because that's what it's about, right? So this movement makes a very clear, like the pro-life group does something very clever, and it has to do with the way they present themselves and market themselves. Keep marketing themselves as if they're pro-life. They are not. They are anti-choice. They are not pro-life. They don't give a shit if a woman dies during pregnancy. They don't care if the child dies of starvation later. They don't care about any of the people who are currently alive. They are not pro-life. They follow none of those things.
Look at the percentages of pro-life peoples that support the death penalty and then talk pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a silly issue. Unfortunately, it's one that I've seen coming. I called that it would be in Alabama jokingly, probably back around the time Kavanaugh was sworn in. Andrew Torres from the Opening Arguments podcast. He's a Harvard-trained lawyer. They cover U.S. law and politics every week. And he had predicted around then that you'd see a lot of bills being passed. And they're not being passed because they're enforceable. They're being passed because they're trying to they want them to be appealed up to the Supreme Court so they can try to get there. And this is just one of the attempts that has made it the farthest so far. And hopefully it doesn't make it through the Supreme Court. That would be nice. But I mean, there's hundreds of these things going up right now, right? So I mean, it's a coordinated movement, really.
Well, it's essentially what they did with gay rights in California, which was they wanted to turn it into a national issue so that if they win there, they win across the country. And so the people who are actually pro gay rights in California actually voted against a bill that would allow it explicitly to have an appeal up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But the Alabama thing here, and I haven't looked at all the bills and what's going on. I think Cheshire brought up a very good point. But the Alabama one is interesting because that violates the Supremacy Clause. That is violating what's already established federal law. So I don't see any. That's going to have to be debated. I think it's going to go almost immediately to the Supreme Court. But it's illegal on its face right now because it violates the federal supremacy over the state on that particular issue, as already decided by Roe v. Wade. So that's ballsy.
And Nick in the amazing talking jacket.
Eyes on it.
I promise you. See, I'm going to come back into the room, but you see, I had promised I'm going to start insulting Cheshire and doing jokes about her, and we could just do the disembodied.
You know something, Nick. I've always said that you're nothing but an empty jacket, anyway. So. Look,
that's the kind of night it's going to be.
No, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Look, if you're going to tee it up like that, I'm not gonna.
Real quick,
I don't hold it. If you hadn't done it, I'd have held it against you. You had to do it.
Speaking of Roe v. Wade too, I want to point a couple things out about that too. Is okay because I'm always forever telling conservatives and right-leaning people that talk about how we need to get some right-wingers on the court and we got to bring down Roe v. Wade. I always try and point out to them, look. When Roe v. Wade was decided, it was decided by a majority conservative court.
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade passed 7-2, and of the 7 who voted in the affirmative, 6 of them were conservative, Republican-appointed justices. And in subsequent challenges, each time it was affirmed again by majority conservative courts. So now things are a little different now, and maybe
they're not, John. So real quick to David's point, these are not laws yet. They are going through the court. So there is a very good chance for activism here, and for a flood of people to remind these judges of their judicial duty to separate church and state. To make aware the fact that this is a religious biased agenda, and it's going to take activists to be very aware of every single court case that's going on. But if you are going to stand in opposition of this, then you need to be aware of these things. You need to stand in opposition of every court case. You need to be on the phone. You need to
be and Nakasuchi. See, but the thing is that wasn't. My point was when I was trying to say that things were different now, what I was referring
to your point, things are different.
Hey, Nakasuchi, can I finish? Nakasuchi, can I finish the sentence?
Go for it, but I do know a lot about what's going on right now.
Right. Trying to make him look his name. Just gonna get him to rage at you.
Yeah, you're messing with me, Jim.
So. When I'm saying things are different, what I was referring to is that the conservatism that's in the air today is a bit different than it was back when Roe v. Wade was decided. And I think that the far right has a certain, you know, boldness with Trump in office, and that they, you know, they feel as if they can get this done now. Everything you said.
Here's the thing, John. So Kavanaugh just got appointed on pretty much guaranteeing that he won't vote Roe v. Wade down, and he will. Don't get me wrong, he's going to. That's why he was on the court. But right now, this session, they are not going to allow it. So we have a little bit of leeway right now. We have a time for activism to take place, and here's the thing. Right now, we have a split court with John Robertson always voting to uphold Roe v. Wade. We don't know what he's going to do now that is a more conservative court. This is why Democrats need to really realize why voting is so fucking important, and why I'm not going to vote for judges. Screw you. You better start, because judges are the most important thing when it comes to politics right now. Trump is flooding this country with very extreme right-wing Christian law type judges. He's trying to appease a very evangelical base. This whole issue right now is to appease an evangelical base. And this issue right now can be won. It can be won because Trump is on his way out if we do things right. If we don't do things right, if the left continues to eat itself and fight against itself, well, then we deserve what we get. Right now is the crucial time. Right now, our freedom is up for grabs. I'm a Bernie guy, and I'm saying I will vote for whoever the fuck it is that isn't Trump, so we can start getting judges in.
I am convinced that by the time the 2020 election's over, you're going to end up with the president and vice president essentially being Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy from SpongeBob. It's just going to be two old men high-fiving all the way to town.
I am slowly leaning towards Yang.
I'm quickly leaning towards Yang. I think he's the best candidate on. Like, he doesn't have the polls yet. I think he's polling around 3% some places, but
he's
pretty good for a new
incumbent.
You know, something I was surprised to see today. There's actually a Republican challenger to Trump too. That's thrown his hat in, right?
and that's not being spoken of, right? So
who's the challenger?
I can't even remember his name, but they put up on the left side of the screen, they put up the 20 Democrats, and on the right side of the screen, they had Trump, and there was the one guy. I think he's a former governor, maybe.
The challenger right now doesn't quite matter. What matters is if John Kasich, the Ohio governor, or if Mitt Romney. Then we will start to see a true choice for the Republican Party to decide whether they're going to be the conservative douchebag Republicans they've always been, or they're going to be the lapdogs of Trump. It's going to get very interesting. It's going to get very interesting.
Yeah,
in an apocalyptic sort of way. Yeah.
In an apocalyptic sort of way. Yeah.
Very apocalyptic. I mean, and we need to be clear.
Dystopia.
We're facing some very serious things, right? So this whole progressive issue that we find very important right now of changing the Democratic Party really needs to come in second place to the main problem, which is conservatism and the warping of it. Well, I used to be conservative, and these conservatives are not conservatives anymore. They're just not.
Yeah, they've been hijacked by the far right. They courted the Tea Party because they really wanted that level of activism and engagement, and they honestly didn't think that Tea Party could turn against them, and it in any meaningful way. It did, and it swallowed the moderate wing of the Republican Party. I am curious though. So you had said that we have to make judges aware that this is based on religion, or that the people who are doing it are doing it for religious motives, and their motives obviously
or at least the major movers. Like, I don't think everybody is like right?
Okay, yeah.
Power that are the religious.
I'm curious as to how the laws are phrased, because I would assume, I mean, obviously a court can't argue based necessarily on, I mean, in rare occasions they can, but for the most part they can't argue based on the motives of the litigants, they have to argue based on the arguments themselves that are being brought to bear. And I assume they're not. Like I said, I haven't actually looked at these laws. That was just one of those things I wanted to have time to do, and I didn't.
One of the people who voted on it, it's absolutely okay for a woman to get an abortion as long as they have the abortion before they know they're pregnant.
Jesus.
That period is a serial killer. Any man who's jacked off is a mass murderer.
Well, here, Nick, as far as the laws, hey, knock, hold on. As far as the laws that were passed, like a couple of the points that I noticed was, like, I believe it was in Alabama. There's no exception. There's no.
The Alabama law will not.
Can I finish my point? Nakasuchi, please let me finish my point.
Go for it, but
okay. Yeah, I got half a sentence out of my mouth and you stomped on me.
He's a mod. You don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. As far as like some of the finer points of the laws they passed, okay, they put no exception for rape in there, no exception for incest.
Exactly.
There's no exceptions at all. I mean, it's like, I think the Missouri laws, anything after 8 weeks.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is if you listen to the conservative, I mean, you listen to Pat Robertson is denouncing the Alabama law right now. This is not the law they want to take to the Supreme Court. I think it's the Missouri law they really want to take this to the Supreme Court, but I might be wrong about that. The Alabama law goes too far, and most Republicans know it. It's not the law they want to be representative of taking down Roe v. Wade. Let's be clear. They are trying to take down Roe v. Wade. That is the ultimate goal.
That was my point about the Alabama law, which is because it explicitly violates supremacy.
Yeah,
they can't. If there were basically any exceptions, they might be able to make an argument for why it doesn't violate, and that the court should redress Roe v. Wade. But because it violates supremacy, that has to get answered first, so they're going to get creamed on it.
The Alabama law is not the one that's going to be it, right? Yeah, but we still need to fight against it. Don't get me wrong. But that's not the law the Republicans are taking to the Supreme Court. It's not.
Go ahead, Cheshire.
I just had a question real quick. There was part that I ended up reading that I didn't 100% confirm it because I just wasn't entirely sure when this first started a week or two ago. Was that women who miscarried could be tried for potentially either manslaughter or murder.
Yes, that is there is actually, I can't remember which state. There is a state in this country right now, if its law becomes law, to where a woman that has an abortion is going to face more time than somebody that actually commits murder.
Right. Yeah, that bit about the abortion was still in there. I just wasn't sure if they still had the miscarried part because
I'm not sure about the miscarried part.
Yeah, they were saying that.
That's chilling. If that's true, that is chilling.
Yeah, because
that's scary.
They're now talking about the difference between whether or not a woman purposefully miscarried or could have avoided miscarrying and didn't do enough. Which this whole thing, including the abortion bit, it just reeks of bad woman's anatomy. You just don't know how this shit works.
Well, and not to mention, it just doesn't take into account.
Men are supposed to be plumbers. Why do you suck at this?
Men suck at most things.
Oh, I'm triggered. Hold on, I'm triggered. That was totally sexist. I am totally triggered, and I'm just gonna start like.
I need to go back to the now. The right wing is exploding right now.
I mean, if choice gets taken away from women, then that makes women second-class citizens, peried. I mean, in my mind.
It takes them back to second-class citizens.
Check the percentage on the number of
as they have been forever.
Check the numbers on the number how many people getting abortion are religious people.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, here's the thing.
Not only that,
people like Jill and Nephilim Free and those guys, they like to argue that abortion is an atheist thing, and I say to them, wait a minute, and that it's a liberal thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, the math doesn't work out, okay?
No,
just as many.
Expecting Nephi to do math?
Yeah. I mean, there's just as many. There's just
the numbers from the red states, man. They completely overwhelm those of the blue states. Blue
Well,
states
the idea that it's
contraceptive and all of that. Like
the idea.
The people in those states actually had sex ed, and atheists tend
Right.
to actually do safe sex. Like, there are just less accidental pregnancies.
I mean, the idea that it could be an atheist thing when atheists are such a small percentage of the population just is ignorant as hell. And then
We
when
are
you look at
literally
when you look at the numbers, it can't be all liberals either. You know, I mean, there's just as many
not only that
Christian conservatives that go out and get abortions as liberals. I mean,
I would ascertain that it's probably more like you go back in the day, but pre-abortion. All right. So who was forcing women to back alley to abortion clinics? It was Christian conservative males that did not want their wives to find out about their mistresses. I mean, this was a large chunk of this crap, right? So, I mean, it's repulsive on its face. It's repulsive on its face. The people that force women into abortions are the people voting against abortion. I'm right there with you, Cheshire. I am drinking.
I'm just giving it.
It's empty.
You need to
Oh,
I
wow.
went to the store before the stream started.
I was asleep.
What do you think I'm doing when I get up and I walk out? It's
when it's just the Jack Nicholas is going on a beer run.
I thought you were doing bongs every time.
Follow our show and
Stop calling me out, John.
Donate to us so I can stop living in a basement and can afford more booze.
I was talking to Nick.
Oh yeah, you want to be?
I was saying Nick was going to do bongs.
I just assume everything you say is about me, John. Come on.
Well, even when we're not on stream, everything I say, ask my family. Everything I say.
I do want to clarify. All right, so I went a little harder on John. I love John. John is one of my favorite people.
Well, I mean, now that you've let on that you've been drinking, now I understand. So don't worry about it, buddy.
I went on Will Kincaid's channel, and I was supposed to meet the manatee, and he got scared. Yes, I've been drinking.
I just realized I wasn't actually subbed to the Great Debate Community channel.
Oh no!
No.
The manatee. You avoided the manatee. Well, hey, look, let's move on.
The manatee
I think
avoided me, right? So he found out the Raging Atheist was going to be on it, and the manatee didn't show. So let's be clear.
Well, he's probably still laying on his belly somewhere. So
we actually have a Patreon goal that is called Save the Artist. If we ever reach that goal, I don't have to be myself anymore.
You don't have to be yourself. Who will you be if you're not yourself?
Somebody.
I'll be a cartoon character 100% of the time, essentially.
Yeah, we'll be living in cartoon form at that point.
Wouldn't that be cool?
If you want the link to I'll put it in the chat. Here's the. Oh, I can't put links in this account.
It's essentially a goal that would allow me to no longer have to work a full-time job. So I'd be able to focus more art assets onto the show.
Yeah, people are welcome to join our one other lonely patron.
I mean, who knows? Someday, both you, the two of you, and the Raging Atheist could be full-time YouTubers.
Could be, especially
just like he's been telling me I'm going to be YouTube famous, but
all my daughter's heroes are YouTube content. They do YouTube content, and they're like 12 years old, and they're millionaires. And I was just like, really? Oh, wow. There are these. I mean, there are these kids, and then some of them are like at least the ones that are teenagers or college age. But like the youngest YouTube content creator to first hit $1 million was 11 years old.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, what?
There's that one kid that opens toys.
Yeah, my girls used to love that, just opening toys. Oh yeah, that's it. They just opened toys for an hour, and then my girls were like, "We want to do that again. We want to do it again." And part of me is like, I'd rather they be learning something, and then the other part of me is, they're leaving me alone. So go do that. That's good parenting, huh?
Isn't it horrible? You guys put all this effort and thought into coming up with ideas for channels, and then the ones that get big are people like the Paul brothers and kids opening up gifts, and
that doesn't bother me because they're still putting work in and they grind really hard, and I'll at least respect them for that. What I don't like is that I'm an artist I contribute to society, and King Flat Earthers get money, and I don't.
Yeah. That's
If you want to
insane.
correct this injustice, you can donate it to patreon.com/slippery slope.
The slippery slope. All right, look, let's get to the topic that was in the title. The reason I thought to talk about this is, of course, the controversy going on between rationality rules and the ACA. I don't necessarily want to dive into the intricacies of that specific issue, but one thing I thought of, and something I've said for a long time, or have asked, since this and when other issues have come up prior to this one, is, are you not allowed to criticize a person who is in a protected class and without being labeled a bigot? I mean, so the question is, when does criticism become bigotry, or can it become bigotry? And what logical errors are there in just automatically labeling criticism as bigotry? And before we dive into it, I want to talk about what I mean when I say criticism, because it's not, insults are one thing, but now, as far as like the definition of criticism, the expression or disapproval of someone or something based on perceived faults or mistakes. Now, and that's something with rationality rules. He perceived something, and then he was corrected after that, and now he is modifying his position.
Well,
so I think that word perceived is very important about it. And when you talk about when you talk about a critique, that's different than just being insulting, or being making an ad hom attack or anything like that. But so take it away. Go ahead, Knock.
Well, I would just say I think the mistake rationality rules made, as a person that has watched this channel for a long time, and doesn't necessarily agree with some of his political leanings. I think the mistake that he made is he just did not follow the science far enough. He obviously looked at the science. He just did not follow it far enough. And I think that that's the recognition he's made is, all right, so I made mistakes. Let me look at this and let me come out with new conclusions based on all of the science. So that's the difference, like that I would say, with rationality rules in particular. When it comes to the topic, I think it's a very nuanced topic, right? So like coming from a Native American perspective, if you were to come at me and say there's a very serious drinking problem in the Native Americans, yes, you are very, very correct about that. If you come at me and say that there's a very serious drinking problem within the Native Americans and they need to take recognition of their faults, then I have a problem with that. So it's a very nuanced topic, right? So, I mean, when it comes to Native Americans, we can speak of how the Euro Americans really pushed liquor onto them. They never had liquor before, and it became a very serious problem in the reservations, right? So there's context. So it really depends on the context. I think that you should be able to criticize people, but you have to take in the context of the situation and be careful of your criticisms, right? So I criticize a lot of fundamental Christians. And then when I mess up is when I start painting with a general broad brush and start comparing those really fundamental Christians with everybody. So I just think it's a nuanced position.
Well, let me ask you, Nick, just to go back to the question. When does criticism, and or questioning a position become bigotry? And when I say questioning too, legitimately questioning a position, not like, questions like, when did you stop beating your wife? Like loaded questions,
When did you stop beating your wife?
Yeah,
I stopped yesterday, John. Come on.
Your transition.
I've never
So-
been married, but
So what do you say, Nick? When does criticism become bigotry, or does it ever become bigotry?
Well, bigotry can become criticism, but I think it one of the biggest ways that I think you can see one turning into another is when you start going from facts like that and starting to immediately assign reasons or motives for it. So, for the example that we just heard, all right, well, if I said, why are Native Americans alcoholics? All right, that's when you use the word alcoholic, all of a sudden you are implying a whole bunch of things that when you say, okay, maybe there's a problem in the Native American community in regards to alcohol, and then saying they're all alcoholics. And then I was in a chat today with a number of polytheists, and an anti-theist had come up to them and said, well, you know, why are the one you often hear, that he didn't actually say this, why are theists also stupid? Why are they all so irrational? Why are they so, well, you can sit there and say that these core beliefs are irrational, but we all have irrational core beliefs. It's when you start sitting here and drawing conclusions from, okay, I believe, or I have the claim that your belief in God is irrational, and I go from that into, well, gee, that necessarily means that all theists must be irrational because they and again, irrational presumably compared to me. I've met plenty of very irrational atheists. So to make that claim, that's where I think you're starting to get into bigotry, because you are assigning a broader motives or a causal relationship that I don't think you can, based necessarily on those facts.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think that proper criticism is not going to be bigotry, but bigotry can be framed as a criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Cheshire, you got anything to add?
I would say that the issue we're talking about is the difference between somebody having a legitimate criticism and the way they communicate that. This is a communication issue, not necessarily an issue about the criticism. So, Nick's example is very good. It's where you say that, well, there's a problem of drinking in the Native American community versus all Native Americans are alcoholics. Those are two very, very, very different things. But I would make the argument is, provided the person is not trying to be, and is not like, that's not their goal, isn't to inflame. If their goal is to legitimately criticize, and all things being equal, that they're being as fair as they possibly can, the only time that a criticism will become bigotry is when it is A, no longer reasonable or fair criticism, and secondly is that it's irrational.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question based on that, and I think I have know where you might go with an answer, but I am curious. I have met and engaged with members of the KKK. I have never met a member of the KKK who thought they were racist, not once.
Sure.
Yes.
They just don't, and so how would you fit that into the model?
Well, the way it would work is that just because somebody doesn't know that they're being racist doesn't mean they're not being racist.
Yeah.
So, you can say something racist without intending to be. It's just a matter of, if they're trying to be, like, all things being equal, they're not trying to be. They can still say something racist, but their criticism might not be valid, and their like, as in based on they don't have enough information, like it's not correct, or B, that it's irrational.
All right.
I mean, we're safe to assume, though, that if you're a member of the KKK, you're racist, right?
Well, no, they don't think they are.
They don't think they are, because they think they have rational reasons for their beliefs. So they would argue that it's not racist to acknowledge genuine, just as it's not sexist to acknowledge genuine differences between the sexes. Their argument is it's not racist to acknowledge genuine differences between the races. And hey, if those the differences happen to mean that whites are superior, it's not their fault for acknowledging it.
Well, and then you're using the word genuine, but what they would perceive as genuine reasons probably aren't.
Well, it doesn't make them right. They're still incorrect.
Right.
And that's why I say, and it's really hard to know people's intent, but intent is everything. And so you can make racist statements out of ignorance, and those statements are not racist, they're just ignorant.
See, I would turn around and say intent is nothing. You can't possibly know, so you can't use it.
Well, yeah, that's true. Like, you cannot know another person's intent,
Mhm.
but
Well, I think they can telegraph it. But yeah.
though. See, I spoke about this in a live stream a couple nights ago. I have a cousin, and he was raised to be racist, and he says a lot of racist stuff, but he's not. He's not, and his actions show it. So like, if you actually sat outside of, say, a campfire where I'm with my cousin and his best friends are there, and his best friends are Mexicans and black people, and you're sitting outside of that campfire and you listen to my cousin, you can be like, this motherfucker is a douchebag. But then once you actually spend time to look at the interactions of that group, you're going to be like, he's the least racist person in that group. It is a very nuanced position, right?
Interpersonal stuff definitely changes the dynamic. So if you've got friends and you interact with those friends, you can judge them based on those interactions with those people. But as soon as they step outside of those interactions, now you're looking at a whole different scope.
And that's true. And there is the whole thing of people not quite realizing what they're saying, or that or of what they are. Like, speaking of my cousin, he says really, really bad shit. That is racist. He doesn't acknowledge that, right? He doesn't see it. It doesn't even come into his equation. and problem, right?
Hey, Cheshire, have you noticed anybody in the live chat expressing interest in joining us?
I haven't seen anybody looking to join yet. I've seen a lot of questions and comments that we've been answering, most of them so far. I've been typing out answers directly.
Well, if you notice,
I need to see who's speaking.
if you notice anybody wanting to get in, let me know. Here's where I think where you can find the answer to this question is, okay, just like in the issue that's been in the air recently. Okay, if someone makes a criticism based on their perceived issues, what they perceive as wrong on a particular issue, and then they are corrected and they modify their position, well, then I would say that they had no ill intent. But now if you correct a person and they double down and they stick to their incorrect criticism, well, then I think you can say that you know their intent at that point, and you can say, whatever the issue may be, that they're bigoted or they're misinformed, or or whatever it is you want to say. I mean, if you have a perception that something is wrong with a particular group or a particular issue, and then the people that know about that issue or that particular group come out and correct your misperception, and you continue on with your misperception, well, then that's when I think you can start to be labeled a bigot, or whatever label stands, whatever label is correct in that position.
Definitely. Like, in that situation, John, you're making yourself Kent Hovind, right? So Kent Hovind's been presented with the facts against his arguments for how many years, and yet he will recognize, all right, I might be wrong about that, and then the next time he gives his slide presentation, it's those same slides. So you're exactly right. Like people, even once they recognize they're wrong, aren't willing to change their behavior.
So there's definitely when you're talking about Kent Hovind is like an obvious fraud, case. An obvious liar, like without a doubt. But if you're talking about
Kent Hovind
who has been corrected and hasn't changed, it is very possible that your approach may have caused them to double down. So, like, depending on how you talk to somebody and how you've approached them about the topic, you might have actually, not necessarily on purpose, but you might have garnered a reaction from them that is them deciding to double down rather than change their mind, depending on who you're talking to, how they've been approached,
Which is a very human reaction.
You're racist, you for being racist, you're not going to change anybody's mind.
Well, I think that, so the principle of charity is one that I really try to apply to sort of maximal effect as I can when talking to people, to try to avoid that. I think that's a spectacular example. And I think the other thing that happens is righteous indignation, and that's part of what's fueling this. Righteous indignation just feels good. It feels rewarding to sit there and feel superior to other people. So I think also not giving them an out and not saying, look, is it possible you rephrased it? Is it possible? But instead saying, oh, did you just say this? And going after them feels better, but makes the conversation harder and makes it more likely that they will entrench, and that you're actually sort of adding to this sort of extremist view and adding to people who.
Away, yeah.
Hey, Cheshire, real quick, Cheshire, could you give Off the Hook the link for this hangout?
Yep.
I'm curious to know how you do that, like how you give links in like YouTube. I didn't know you could like a private chat in YouTube. Someone will have to explain that to me.
Well, no, you just put it in. She'll just send her a message in the live chat.
No, don't put links in the live chat.
Well, no, don't put it in. Do not put it in the live chat. Steve
not in the live chat.
He doesn't want it in the live.
Don't worry, I am not.
Well, hold on a second.
The link, and then you can send it privately.
Right, you can send it privately, but it's not a bad thing to put it in the live chat, because I have it set up such that I can only bring in people that I know. Like they can't just pop in.
Steve just highlighted 3 times. Do not, under any circumstances, put it in the live chat. So even though you may have it set up that way, I don't know what.
He's in there now. He's said it. Okay.
Yeah, he said it. He said it 2 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I've only looked at the live chat a couple times. But I thought that wasn't a problem, because like the settings they have here, like when you guys first came in, you weren't presented to anybody until I clicked on you and allowed you into the meeting. So I don't see where anybody.
He just said it again. He said you can get sniped by doing that. So I had done it once because I didn't know any better. So
all right. Well, I am new to this, and I remember the horror story when Fight the Flat Earth first tried to do a few streams. And they kept taking him down, and they porn bombed him and all that. So Steve's absolutely right. I was under a misapprehension that because these settings are set the way they are, that nothing bad could happen. But
I did the same thing on mine on Steve's channel. I did the same thing. So yeah.
You know, and I was going to point out too, Nick. I think you're familiar with somebody that. Maybe you had corrected or shown where they were wrong, and instead of taking that under advisement, they, after the fact, doubled down and
all things being fair and all things being honest. You mean?
Well, right. I'm trying to refer to his debate with S.J. Thomason, because it seemed like after the debate, she wanted to double down and she wanted to continue the debate in social media and all that. But,
well, she didn't want to continue that debate, that's for sure.
What happened? No, and then she told me that I misunderstood the debate topic, and then she said that I had picked the debate topic, which was not true. But there's something very actually interesting and apropos of that, which was shortly after that too. She had made some unsubstantiated claims about a third party. She had been going with me for 5 days and got no real traction, so she started going after other people. And I had sat there and said, well, look, and I publicly said time and time again, look, maybe she doesn't understand the the severity of what it is she's doing right here. So perhaps we can. And then I got hit by loads of people who sat there and said, I can't believe you're defending SJ. And I was like, I'm not defending her. I'm giving her an out. And what I'm trying to say is, look, maybe she doesn't understand. And I'm sure that if she thinks about it, she'll reach the conclusion that this isn't a place anybody wants to go to, and she shouldn't be making allegations that she really can't support. Now, unfortunately, in that case, it probably didn't work. But I think that's a good example of a way to, when something is really quite extraordinary, and in my mind, that a lot was happening after that, where she was getting very aggressive with other people, and I just kept trying to say, well, look, you know, SJ, are you sure you really mean this? Maybe what you know, and what was interesting was there were people who were sitting there going, oh my God, Nick, I can't believe you're being so kind to SJ. I was like, did you watch the debate?
Yeah, there's not.
I can't.
Like,
you cannot.
I was on the phone ready to dial 911 watching that because that was murder. That was like I was concerned.
You know,
And so now I'm getting accused of being, you know, her best friend and being supportive of her because I am being as charitable as humanly possible in other post-debate events. It's just like, look, I'm not the guy who's Oh,
You know
I
what
got
I love?
accused. I got blocked
I
by
have
a lot
been
of people.
trying to bait SJ into a conversation for months, and if I actually ever get it, I'm gonna be nice as hell.
You know what I loved is
Yes.
we were in a live chat one night, and SJ was talking about it, and she put it right out there, and Nick was there too. Well, Nick already admitted that he strawmanned me in that debate, and then and then a couple beats go by, and then there's Nick correcting her. Well, no, I never admitted to strawmanning you. What are you talking about? Like,
But again, and even there, and if you saw what happened there too, she started to try to relitigate it right there in that chat. And I was like, look, you know what? If we're going to have to, we have to, but let's not do it here in this chat right now. Let's, let everyone enjoy the evening and kind of go forward. And I do think, I mean, I was as polite as humanly possible as well during that debate. And I think that's one reason why it was able
you were
to
nothing
the
but
way.
a gentleman during that debate for sure.
So,
I posted in the comment section when that debate posted as a video, something to the effect of watch SJ's smile dissolve from her face as the debate progresses.
There's been a couple of threads of people just watching her. Yeah.
I know I've had a lot of people. I'm sorry, Cheshire. Go ahead.
Is that it's like watching Spider-Man after the snap?
Hey, Cheshire,
I feel so good.
any of you guys that know more than me about it, like, so since this is Steve's channel, and by the way, I went back to live chat to look at Steve's and that one, all caps.
Yeah.
Don't put the link in the live
we
chat.
weren't kidding.
All caps.
Twice, he did it twice. We weren't
yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
We weren't
Don't
jostling
give
you.
Steve a heart attack, please.
So, but since this is Steve's channel, he has access to this Hangout link, right? We don't have to send it to him if he wanted to come in, right? Or do we have to send it to him?
He may or may not. I'd send it to him just in case, but he'd tell you if he wanted to come in.
Yeah. But
I'll
if,
send it to him on Twitter.
yeah,
Whatever.
send it to him if you can, Cheshire.
I like Steve.
Whatever, if he wants to come in.
I think that
All my atheist friends, how do you not hate Steve?
He can get in. He's good. He can get in.
It's great. man.
Okay. All right. Hey,
the theme
so-
about with debate is like originally debates were supposed to be two people coming together to work towards a common truth, right? Like that was the attitude of debates. It wasn't like two people with opposing ideas just arguing about it. And a lot of people come into debates like arguments, where they're not willing to concede a point even if it's in front of them, right? Mm-hmm. And that's frustrating. But the thing that, like Nick was saying, like acting charitably is so important, but it's also important if you're looking at persuasion, if that is your goal, to persuade the other person your side, then communication is the response you get, right? Like, so if you're not getting the right response, you need to be flexible enough to adjust your approach. So if you look at people who do things like street epistemology, they're much more likely to at least shift somebody's idea a little bit than if they're just having an argument on the street. And I think that one of the things that's lacking in debate is the nuance to actually have a conversation and figure out what makes the person tick in order to be able to communicate with them, rather than just showing up with some facts and wailing somebody over the head with some figures and quotes. And you know what I mean? Like that doesn't seem to be very effective.
See my first debate with Andrew Stratilites, which was another interesting one and a very different tone.
With who?
Andrew Stratilites.
Sounds like one of the Musketeers.
Yeah, it does. He's one of the Red Pill guys. So that was another. I have a hard time doing debates that aren't controversial in one way or another. But that one was actually, if you look, I thought we really were able to have a very honest and give and take back and forth, and it was, I thought, a very impressive discussion. It wasn't even a debate; it was much more of a discussion.
I really like how you said his last name because I totally didn't even recognize it. I'm like, I call him like Andrew Stratalis and or douchebag.
It's on my I've got a mirror of it on my my YouTube channel, but I think you'll see, believe it or not, that is exactly what happens there. It's exactly what you're talking about. And for someone who, everyone says he's intractable, it was I thought, a rather astonishing discussion.
So hey, look, just to put a pin in this, the last half of the question. This is to Nick and the slippery soap folks. So what logical errors or logical fallacies are there in just automatically labeling a criticism as bigotry or some other pejorative?
Well, I think part of it is you're assuming intent.
Yeah.
But what are there any logical fallacies that apply
to be a bigot, like bigotry, right? Like that is an action, like you're doing a thing. I think that people can be unintentionally say something that could be perceived as bigoted. But like for something to like cross that line, that you're assuming, like if you're just saying, oh, they said that because they're bigoted, you're assuming their state of mind.
No, I think usually so. What you're doing here is affirming the consequent, which is, so it's not necessarily that. So bigoted by itself is not a fallacy. How you employ your beliefs in a discussion. So in order for it to be a fallacy, it has to be something where you're making an argument, which is to say two or more premises with a conclusion, which is said to logically follow. And a fallacy is committed when, for some reason, you have violated the logic that would allow you to say that you have a valid conclusion from those premises. Now, bigotry itself is not going to cause that to happen, but bigotry will have you, will make you much more likely to add in another fallacy, and bigotry usually comes from some kind of error in thinking or making assumptions that you shouldn't be making. So if you're going to make a hasty generalization is as close to, I think, a fallacy that you could get to, that you could say is bigotry. But bigotry in and of itself is not the fallacy. The fallacy is bigotry may lead to certain kinds of fallacies over others. I would agree, but I don't think there's a relationship.
I think more what you mean is that if somebody accuses you of being bigoted when you make an argument, and I think you might be able to call that a morality issue, like an appeal to morality, because you're saying that you can't say that because it's morally not okay to be racist or bigoted or
just an ad hominem. I mean, I think that's just sort of an ad hominem.
That as well. It kind of fall, depending on how it's phrased, it could probably fall under a couple of different ones.
And when you say hasty generalization, that was the only one that I could come up with in my mind. Like when you talk about the emperor atheist issue, what he said, that was a hasty generalization. I mean, saying that what's that?
I said, oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
I didn't hear him before that. I have no idea who he was. I was like, who's this asshole?
But bigotry would lead you to be more inclined to make, say, a slippery slope argument, where you'd say, well, if we're going to give this group of people this and that. So again, you don't have to be bigoted to make a slippery slope argument, and bigoted people aren't necessarily going to make one. But that is a fallacy that I think if you are bigoted, you would jump to pretty quickly, where you'd say, well, gee, and then that gets into actually all of the topics we've touched on. So whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's I'm a little tired, so my concentration's going. But if we, any one of those, you sit there and say, well, if you give women this kind of, if you let them have certain exceptions for abortion, it's going to be abortions across the board, and people will just be having, you'll be able to get one at the local CVS, yada, yada, yada. So you're more inclined to make a slippery slope if you're
flu shots and abortions here. Ask the pharmacist.
Real quick, and I know we're not about to end because Socka just came in, but real quick, like I don't know much about fallacies. I'm learning whatever. I know bigotries, right? So We got into this conversation a little bit last night on Steve McRae's channel, and I didn't really like put my 2 cents on this, but here's the difference. Like, and this is the thing: people want to say phobia is a fear, blah blah blah, bigotry, whatever. Bigoted people, and I know a lot of them, don't fear what they hate. This is about hate. This is about not being able to understand other human beings for being the way they are and placing hatred upon them. So when you speak homophobia, when you speak transphobia, you're not speaking about, oh, I'm afraid of a gay person. You're speaking Matt Powell shit. I want to kill a gay person, and there's a big difference, right?
Yeah,
Like, at least
people fear what they don't understand, and they hate what they fear. Oftentimes,
well, yeah. Well, I think fear is a part of it, but it's like the biggest that I knew, they weren't afraid to go and tell black people and call them the N-word right to their face and start a fight. Like, they're not afraid in that manner. They're more afraid that they are what they hate. That's my opinion.
Well, I think that's true.
Hatred based on lack of understanding or lack of knowledge of, particularly when you're referring to like the dehumanization of people. So if you're talking about like, well, we're afraid of people who are gay because like back in the 80s, people thought they were spreading AIDS, which was just not good information, but a legitimate fear if it was correct.
Exactly.
Religious people could think that they're going to lead people to hell. You know, there's a number of factors that, you know, usually there is some element of fear involved with bigotry to some extent.
Well, yeah.
So here's an example I want to give,
element, but it's not the factor, right? Like homophobe, like Matt Powell. Like, this is a perfect example. Like, if you talk to him and you get him on homosexuals, it's not so much fear, but disgust. And the fear would come in the fact that he might be quite possibly disgusted at himself. The fear is self-reflected. It's not fear of the other person.
Well, here, let me get.
Hold on a second. Can you guys please tell, how did you guys get unmuted at the beginning? Because I'm trying to unmute Socka.
Top left.
There's just a button.
You don't want to unmute Socka. Once you unmute Socka, the conversation's over.
I mean,
I love you, man.
I just when I jump into the room, I don't just be like, "Hey guys, I'm here. Let's listen to me for the next 5 minutes."
Socka's my boy. Put that out there.
Well, why is he's all I'm seeing on the main screen right now? Even when you guys are talking, all I'm seeing is Sokka's avatar.
There's a button for setting that. There's a button for setting that. You've just set him as the primary one, so you're
I'm not presenting him. That's why I can't.
What you've done is you've done something called white boxing me, which just means you just clicked on me. Just click on me again. It's going to unwhite box me, and everybody else will be. It's going to go back to normal.
John, we know you're like totally in love with Socka, and you did this on purpose.
Socka is one of my favorite people for sure.
So I want to give an example before I forget it, because I like this example, and I think you're right that it's not necessarily a fear, but I think there is fear behind. I think the phobia, they use phobia because it often does start in fear, and in homosexuality, I think that's the best example of it. And here's why: there was an Oprah Winfrey had on Secret Crushes once. And a guy comes on to find out who his secret crush is, and turns out it's another guy. And this was not in the 80s, but this was a while ago. So he finds out about it, and then the crush said, "Oh yeah, I've had dreams of us being in a hammock together, and I'm going to use whipped cream and so on and so forth." Next day, the straight man murdered the homosexual guy, killed him. Why? Now here's the thing. It's fear, and I think the fear is that, oh my God, I'm going to start being viewed by other people the same way I view women. And when you start to realize that, because they say, well, I'm afraid that I'm afraid that homosexuals are going to see me as targets, and I don't want that. The only person who says that is the person who thinks of women as targets, and there's this sudden, overwhelming fear. And guys tend to, when they are confronted with something they fear, their immediate instinct is to kill it, period. That's it. And I think that's why that happened. And I think that's why guys, you'll find straight guys much more inclined to.
I've said this.
Hold on. And by the way, that was not Oprah. That was Jenny something or other.
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right. You're right. It was.
I have
right.
often said this, and then I'm gonna go make another drink and let other people speak. But I've often said this, like the fear isn't that. It's self-reflective, right? Like they're not afraid of that gay man. They're afraid that they might be that gay man. Right?
Well, I mean, it's all fears in some way are self-reflective because we fear the perception of the thing more than the thing itself, right? I mean, this is like, a fear of heights isn't there just because it's a height. It's because you have the fear of falling, right? Like it's not.
I don't know. I might disagree with you there, David, because I'm scared.
Well, I mean, I work with people primarily on phobias. So I mean, we could get really into it. I'm keeping it simple, but
no, you're right. You're right. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. If you look at like the example that Nick just gave with homosexuality, there can be a component where people say, "Oh, what if that's me?" But it's still rooted in, if that's me, am I going to be treated like I treated X?
That was the point. That was the point I was going to make, and I totally forgot. Like, I think a lot of homophobia is men treat women a certain way, and then the idea of a man looking at them the way they look at women,
or being sexually harassed, and
being sexist as fuck.
Is part of it also
like I'm her. Right,
is part
offensive to a lot of men.
Is part of it also the fact that
part of it could be being
when it comes to homosexuality, is part of it also that those type people believe that homosexuality is a choice, and they don't want to examine that because they're afraid they might make that choice.
I don't think they care either way. I don't even think it. I think it hits them on an instinctive level where they're sitting there going, "Oh my God. Now I'm being treated. I could now be sexually harassed. What happens if I'm in the workplace and another guy grabs my butt? What do I do about it?" Most guys don't have to worry about a woman doing it. But all of a sudden, now that it's a possibility for one reason or another, I think that's where just these alarm bells go off. And I don't think they can rationalize that it doesn't make them better people because they sit there and say, "Oh, hey, wow, maybe I should start treating women better." I don't think they can even reach that. But what I think that's where the visceral hatred and response comes in.
I mean, it can also be things like, what if my family hates me? What kind of judgment am I going to face from these people? Like there's a complex set of fears. I don't think it's just sexually harassment. But generally speaking, I think people are indoctrinated to think about these things in a certain way. And if they've had a lot of experiences that are very negative in those areas, they're going to have fears built around not experiencing those things themselves.
Socka, get in here, man.
On what?
I don't know.
Why are people homophobic?
Comment on that or change the subject if you want.
I think the question. I mean, like there's a lot of different reasons. Like it's really hard to pinpoint like one thing for any type of phobia that's out there. But I think like there are some interesting discussions to be had about like where some of these prejudices do come from. So one of the things that, like, for example, with homophobia is, well, a lot of people, might not know this or disagree. It's true and studied, but homophobia is one of those things that is, very prevalent in Black communities in the United States, within the African American communities. Now, why is that? Like, why would you find like that type of attitude within, I guess within a certain culture? And so the reasons why there is going to be a lot different than reasons that other people have, and they're all interesting. That how people can come to these positions and these type of prejudice based on things that go beyond just religious belief, but actually to a certain extent some cultural reasons as well.
It's possible that this could come from could come from a place of experience where they've had poor interactions with this group of people. or they've been harassed, or they've been something or another, and it's not so, and they've now applied it to everybody. You see that with a lot of people who are afraid of groups of people. So I mean, it's straight up possible that it could be coming from every direction. To be honest, it could be all of the above. And if you're looking for a solution, like how to address it, the best way to do that is to have them interact with those people who aren't assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the experience to the normalization things being out there, realizing, especially with things like within like the gay community, like things like gay pride parades, I think are great for when you see people out there, because you see every aspect of society, that it's not just that within like the gay community, it's not just one culture, but it's people from like everywhere. You have law enforcement officers, you have teachers, you have like
anybody. Like if you're an atheist, you want to meet other atheists, go to a gay pride parade. Seriously.
like when you say like meet other atheists, I mean like for dating tips or?
Well, no, just to meet. if you're an atheist and you're alone and you want to meet another atheist so you're not alone, go to a gay pride parade. You're gonna meet an atheist. Seriously.
Yeah. I live in a city that's like dominant. Like I think we have more non-religious people than religious, so I'm okay.
I've tried to explain to many homophobes when they say, "Oh, those people are horrible. I don't hang out with them." I mean, I try to explain to them, look, you come in contact with gay people every day, and you don't even realize it. They're under this. They have this idea that all gay people are a certain way, that they can tell by the way
Some
they
of the manliest men I know are gay dudes and would kick my ass.
Without a doubt. So I'll just throw it out to all of you. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Any subject you want to bring up for discussion?
I think that the people who are against gay people who are also against abortion need to check their priorities. Because you can't, like, being against both of those things is kind of counterproductive.
So did you guys talk about abortions earlier today?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
Slightly.
Socka, you got an opinion on abortions?
Well, I mean, I have. I think that it's a really weird discussion, because a lot of the rhetoric gets brought in by people advocating for both positions, and I think that we are dishonest with ourselves whenever we approach this conversation. It's really hard to have a genuine conversation on the topic with a lot of people, I find.
Well, it's because it's the topic that it is. I mean, it involves life, it involves choice, it involves freedom.
I was legitimately having a conversation.
Topic.
I was legitimately having a conversation with somebody who said abortion shouldn't be allowed because they saw one once and it was gross.
Yeah, a lot of bad arguments for it there. But I mean, it's like, like I find that like so there's like it's a really bad conversation, because it can go wrong on so many levels. Like just so many bad arguments. Like when people say things that's like just like, well, a fetus is a human life. You can't kill it. And then you have people that would argue against that. They'll say things like, a fetus isn't, a human yet. Or it's not
I would mainly say is like, can you put child support on that fetus? Can you get benefits from that fetus? Like, we don't treat.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is that that's whether or not you can claim child support for something is not the qualifiers for what makes something human. If my parents separate now,
special benefits to a 6-week-old embryo.
No, but what I'm saying,
put a woman in jail for terminating it. Are you willing to give that same woman?
Okay, but raging. The point is, the point is that that's not a good label for it. And this is what I'm talking about. Is that, like, my parents, if they were to separate now, I'm 35 years old. You know,
Right
they,
now-
my mom can't claim child support on
women
me.
in prison getting a
So whether or not there's the fact that you can claim child support on something, or whether it's a bad direction to go with the argument. Okay.
Yeah, it's such a bad argument. Like you can make best friends enemies out of this argument.
Hey, real quick, can somebody that's not such a technological neophyte as myself send Jay Pasick a message? Anybody else in here know Jay
I
Pasick?
love Jay Pasick. He's one of my. I mean, him and Socka. It might not quite translate right now. Are two of my favorite people.
That can send him the link. He wants to get in.
I have. I'm pretty sure I have Jay Pasick's email, so I will. Let me copy the link and I'll send it to him.
All right.
Yeah, so a lot of it gets a lot of the conversation gets bogged down in things like language and definitions, and like I said, and we push these things from certain viewpoints to trigger some type of reaction from people, like, oh, you can't kill babies, okay, like abortion is killing babies, and people look at this and it's like, well, no, it's not a baby and it's not killing, and okay, and this is, like I said, that when the conversation goes into that, where we start defining things, or we're trying to just steer it away from the emotional parts of the argument, I think we focus on what the the important aspects of the discussion actually are. So that's what I say is I don't think that there's a lot of conversations about abortion that are from a genuine spot that lead up to legitimate kind of like reasoning between two people.
Okay, well, I got a quick question then. Why can't we kill babies? Well, you said that the argument starts off with, well, you can't kill babies. Well, why not?
Why can't you kill babies?
Why can't you kill babies?
It's just,
Why are we not giving babies to White Walkers right now, Socka? And Jay Pasick, I sent you a link.
So just on the viewpoint, like, why wouldn't we kill babies? Well, I mean, so when we talk about life, is that we one of the things that we as a society do is work our best to try to preserve life for the most underrepresented, or those that can't represent themselves. So things, for example, that can't actually exercise rights that we kind of would say that they have. We have a certain moral obligation towards them. So there's a certain moral obligation that we have for things that can't argue for their own rights, and I think that babies is one of those things that we just, we have a moral obligation towards.
You just hit my heart.
So that being the case, if it's a matter of one life versus another life, which one takes priority?
I mean, geez, that's the problem that we've been trying to figure out. That's the problem we've been trying to figure out for a while. I mean, any type of trolley problem that you present, that tests any type of ethical model there, essentially it's the same question that we're asking right now.
Listen, depending on what you make that trolley problem, I may try to kill as many people as possible with it. But when you drift the train so it goes on.
You do it on both tracks, because you get, and then it goes into a loopy loop. It's the hedonistic trolley problem.
Not only have you managed to kill everybody on the tracks, but also everybody in the train.
Socka, like seriously, I have been pro-choice for 20 years. And you hit my heartstrings. Like I think you've been watching Messenger Reveals when he talks to me about how I defend the marginalized, and now all of a sudden I'm like, fuck, I got to defend the marginalized. How can I still be pro-choice?
Well, but here's the thing too. Here's the other issue that Cheshire brought up, which is a great one, is how do we choose?
Part of the bill is miscarrying.
Yeah. We also got to.
When it comes to Socka, it's individual rights. So
because it's really their choice, right?
It's choice.
We're talking there.
A choice from. I'm sorry. It's taking a choice from a woman. So I do not support abortion. I would never, ever, ever want to be a part of an abortion. I feel like I'm a good enough father that I can take care of my child. I do not want to take away the choice from women, and I do not want to take away the choice from young women who have made mistakes. And I just don't quite see, I'm sorry, an embryo as a human being. I just don't.
Well,
Yeah, I don't even see a baby
I mean,
as a human being until it's like 3.
well, technically,
technically,
so technically, it is a human being. It's just, you know, it's what I mean. It's like you can say things like that. And this is, like I said, we get stuck into the rhetoric here. You know, humans go through different stages, including stages in utero. Okay, it's still a human being. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that you conceded the argument by saying that's a human being. You know, if you say that from the moment that from the earliest stage of pregnancy, that what you have inside of you is a human being growing. You know, that doesn't take away from the argument.
Socka. Steve's saying he disagrees with you.
So
Zygote is not a human
I know.
being.
Socka, just out of curiosity, are you using Patrick Durr's argument?
I got Nicholas here, so Nicholas, please speak.
Well, no, I'm curious if you're using Patrick Durr's argument, because Patrick Durr is he's an ethicist, Clark University chair of philosophy over there, but that's his argument, and he actually wrote a paper on it, and it became quasi-famous, but it hasn't picked up. This is the first I've ever heard outside of Patrick Durr that argument, and what he does is he equates it to slavery, and almost every single argument that one could use for endorsing slavery, he equates to pro-life, and he also makes the same arguments that you did about it's just a different stage. You are technically a human being, the second of, and there's always been a second of conception. You're technically a human being. It's a stage everybody in this room has been at some point. It's a necessary stage. It is a sufficient stage because you've got all of the material there already. Nothing else is going to, none of us have ever been anything other than a human being. So yeah, that's the argument. Yeah.
I would probably.
And I would definitely not want to kill anything that I would see as a viable human being, right? Like anything that's been in gestation long enough. I'm sorry, Cheshire, but
No, that's fine. I'm waiting.
I don't want to take away choices from human beings. I don't know. Go ahead, Cheshire. I'm sorry.
I would probably end up wanting to point out that if it can't survive viably on its own, you have to have consent of whatever is going to keep it alive.
Yes.
If you don't have consent, that person is not obligated to keep that thing, whether you describe it as a person or whether you describe it as a leech, is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It matters that whoever is going to be giving up to maintain that life or to keep that thing from being dead alive, they have to be okay with it. And that's the priority because they're the thing that is already a viable human being.
We know,
but hold on. Can I address that? Sorry. Yeah. So let's say you're driving down the highway. You're driving down the interstate and you see a toddler walking by the side of the road. Do you have a moral obligation to pull over and make sure that kid doesn't get hit by a car?
Hell yes.
No.
Hell yeah.
What?
Hell yeah.
What kind of monster is going to say that they don't have a moral obligation to something?
Moral obligations. We're talking about legal obligations, right?
Who cares? Yeah. Who cares about legal obligations at this point in time? Okay.
Pregnancy as monsters, and as a person,
hold on.
I'm sorry.
We're getting a lot of crosstalk here, and that does not translate.
I love you, man.
Over the air.
Go
ahead, Socka.
We disagree because it's not often.
Go ahead, Socka. Finish your point. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you say that you have an obligation towards something, okay, we're not talking about generally in the reference of this, in this discussion, or we're not referring to a legal obligation. And let me just start off by saying that I am completely opposed to the laws that have been brought in Ohio and Alabama that are trying to regulate and criminalize abortions. I'm avidly against those. So I'm not arguing for those positions or supporting those positions at all. But when we are talking from the position of moral obligation, okay, and I think that the same type of argument that you just made there, Cheshire, saying that you don't have an obligation from the viewpoint of a moral obligation, would be the same type of argument to say that you don't have a moral obligation.
I just said fuck no to your question.
Oh, okay.
I preferred it. I preferred it when it sounded like she was saying "fuck no" to picking up the kid, because I was just like, "Ooh, now we're gonna have a good discussion."
I did say, yeah, no, that is exactly the thing I said "fuck no" to, but I didn't make an argument.
Good.
All I did was say no.
Yeah.
I just want to make it really uncomfortable and say that as I see Cheshire so close up, she's prettier than before.
Yes, that does make us all uncomfortable. Hey, the part I can't get past is that, okay, now if any woman ever asked my opinion, I would advise them not to have an abortion. But that's just my personal belief. But they have the choice. They have the choice. Okay. And here's the part I can't get past. There are inherent risks to bringing a pregnancy to term. And how can I dictate to another human being what risks they have to take?
Not only inherent risks, but economic.
Hold on, Knock. And this is what those laws are basically doing in these states. They're saying, look, we're going to dictate to you what you can do with your body. We're going to dictate to you what risks you must undertake. And I can't accept that.
Well, hold on. Raging, hold on a second.
When are we going to start
raging? Hold on.
To stop being able to produce children and stop concentrating on women.
I think when he starts talking, he mutes everybody.
I'm sorry.
So, okay.
When are we going to start
John, to that point.
Hey, Knock. Let's sock it.
Okay. John, to that point, there's an inherent risk to vaccinating your child. Okay, because especially at the young age, like you don't know whether or not your child might have an allergic reaction to a vaccination. It carries with it a very small risk. For that. Does that mean that you shouldn't vaccinate your child?
There's a larger risk if you don't vaccinate your children, though, because it compromises herd immunity. There's no inherent risk to the rest of humanity by you not having an abortion, right? That's somebody's risk. If you have a child, Socka, and they get sick, let's say they get in a car accident or something, are you obligated to give them a kidney if they need it? You're a match, and there's no other match?
Morally obligated or legally obligated?
Both.
I'd say I would be morally obligated, yeah.
Okay, up to what age?
For my child?
Yeah.
Oh, as long as my kidneys function.
Well, what if they're an asshole?
What happens if they're an asshole? Well, luckily, as loud as my children are, I don't put them in the stage of being assholes yet.
Okay, well, but the point is should somebody be able to come along and compel you to give your kidney if you don't want to?
Well, then we're getting to the legal issue. I don't think people should be compelled to do anything from enforced by some type of legal viewpoints in these type of situations. But
so the same thing applies to the child.
I think that people should be people should be compelled to take care of a child. Right. I think people should be compelled to take care of their own children.
But the problem is when you get to the abortion topic, nobody cares about morality. The thing that people are concerned about is the litigation, right?
Wait. Why don't we care about the morality with all this issue?
Because you can't litigate morality onto people.
So are you saying that so we can't? So there's certain moral things out there that we can't litigate completely within
Not
things.
Everybody shares the same moral code, right?
Yeah.
Right? We can't impose one person's morality onto somebody else because we just simply don't have the same moral code, right?
I would like to point out
your own morality. You can try to influence people you care about if you like. But the idea of somebody using their moral framework to generate legal obligations and compel people to do or not do things.
Oh, right? I disagree. Yeah, I disagree. I remember I said earlier, if we're talking about this from a legal viewpoint, I disagree with these laws being put into place.
So there's an inherent flaw in the analogy from a little bit earlier that I wanted to point out. If you don't know that, like you both mentioned earlier, sorry, not Socka, but Raging and John mentioned that if you know a woman, you would advise, barring any other information other than that she is pregnant and is considering an abortion, you would advise them against doing that. Don't fucking do that. If you don't have any other information, do not do that. You
Well,
do
let me
not
hold
have any other-
on, knock.
I would definitely not interject myself into anybody's situation.
Hold on, buddy. Hold on. Look, let me clarify what I mean by that. What I mean by that is if they ask me, I wouldn't go out of my way.
Right, and if they ask you,
if they ask, well,
Even if they
maybe
ask, I would
maybe I would ask them.
That's a difficult choice. You should really think about what you want to do.
Yes,
But wait,
that
actually,
would be the proper answer.
I'm just
pointing
saying,
out a problem in the analogy.
Based on what I'm saying is based on what I believe. If they ask my opinion, I would, and if I needed to get more information from them, I would. I'm saying I would advise them not to have an abortion.
So
but
what
it's ultimately,
So
but it's ultimately
myself clear. I would
Nakasuchi.
I would think
You got to let people finish before you jump in, man.
I'm sorry, dude, but I'm just saying, like, to clarify myself, I would not.
Right. You can do that. You can do
not
that.
to get an abortion. I would think it, and I would try to come up with ways to like maybe guide them in that direction. But I would not like straight up say like, listen to me, don't have an abortion. I would be like, your choice is your choice.
Well, that's why I was pointing out the problem in the analogy. I'm sure you're both good people, and I'm sure you would want whatever is best for your friend. But the problem in the analogy is that if you don't have any other information, you should not be doing that. Here.
Just out of curiosity, because of the way you phrased it, I have a question, because the way you brought an analogy, if you have no other information, and she asks for your opinion, fully knowing that you do not have all the information, what it sounds like you're saying is that you should not give your answer as to your opinion, and or you should not yet have an opinion.
In that situation, if she knows that I don't have all of the information and she's just asking for my opinion, I would give my opinion. But in most situations, I would not. I would try to take into consideration that this is a very hard choice, and I would probably bide my time to come up with the correct information to give her.
I would specify that there is a difference between somebody asking for advice and someone asking for an opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes.
So if somebody says, "Hey, what's your opinion on this?" Now you're talking about general. If somebody asks you for advice, they're now asking you about themselves.
My opinion is your choice, and I'm gonna fucking support it. My advice would be, I didn't think I was gonna be a good dad until I was a dad. You know.
Some people, it's not about whether or not they think that they'd be good at something. It's whether or not they want to be that thing at all. They may just straight up not want to be a parent.
I was so scared of being a dad. I was like, I'm not the right guy. I'm not going to be that good dad. And guess what? I'm a great fucking dad. I might be the best dad in the entire world. And so my advice would be, give yourself that chance. Be that great parent that you don't think you can be. But
if that's their contention, sure.
Yeah, but as I say with everything, context is everything, right? So situations matter, and I am pro-choice. If you are going to make that choice, I'm going to support you 100% vehemently. I mean, you will not find a greater supporter than you will in me.
Right? Well, that's kind of the whole point of Roe v. Wade. It wasn't about whether or not society had that particular choice on whether or not a woman could or could not have an abortion. It was her decision, and she took that upon herself. And when she went in, it was between her and her doctor and whoever she allowed in that decision-making process. It's not about promoting the abortion. It's simply about, is that an option or is that choice there?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's about supporting people and understanding the hard decisions that they make. Anybody that decides to have an abortion, I'm sorry, it's not birth control. It's a very hard decision, and you need to be empathetic to that decision and support those human beings.
Hey, real quick. I just want to say,
like, at what point do you cut off a lot of choice?
Hey, let the guy hosting the channel.
All I want to do was say goodnight to Dr. Misha Griffith. She just was saying she's checking out there in live chat. Thanks for coming by, Dr. Misha.
Have a good night.
Yeah, I understand everything you were saying, Cheshire, but you know, if a family member or a close friend comes and asks you for your advice, I mean, I think that, you know, if they're within your sphere of influence or somebody you care about, you're obligated to give them your advice. I mean,
Right, but why is your advice focused on the they should carry a child and not what is best for them?
I never, I never, Nakasuchi. She asked me a question. Slow your roll, buddy. Look, I never said the word should. All I said is if I was asked for my advice would be to not have an abortion, but it's always their choice. I mean, and
right, by saying not have an abortion, you're saying they should carry the child to term.
Well, right. I mean, because
so yeah, you did.
But my opinion, but my opinion is just my opinion. The
right, your opinion is not advice, though. That's the difference.
Advice is based on evaluating the circumstances, and you don't have enough.
Let me know when I can fucking speak, John, please.
But maybe she wants to know his opinion based on not even those, but just listen.
Absolutely.
Because he can have an opinion that he is for himself pro-life, but respects for other people. So if she's asking in that context, and what I'm sort of thinking is, if she knows she hasn't given him other information, if she presumably knows what she's given him, and if she's asking for advice, well, I agree that you should never give advice without, you know, really understanding as best you could. If she asks and he just says, well, off the top of my head and just being asked here and now, this is what I think.
Sure, I agree. But like I said, if you're trying to give advice, then you're talking about a situation, and if you're talking about an opinion, you're talking in general. That's my
the thing of it is, like, and this has never happened. Okay, I'm speaking theoretically here, but you know, I imagine the conversation going something. Well, look, if you're asking me, if at all possible, if there's a way that you could not, abort your pregnancy, I think you should go that route. But the choice is completely yours. My personal opinion is, you know, that the choice first and foremost is the right of every woman. But I don't want to see any fetus get aborted. I mean, to me, it's a human being. So that's where I'm at.
Right, and that's fine. Nobody's telling you don't have your opinion.
Can I speak? Because I'm sorry, a fucking fetus. I'm sorry, a fetus is not a human being. It's a fucking fetus. It's a fucking tadpole. All right, so let's fucking distinct that shit.
It's a human being.
Let's get one thing straight. It is absolutely and irrefutably a human being. Now, it is, and that there is absolutely no geneticist on the planet.
It is not.
Hold on. Let me finish. I'm not done. It depends on how you define human being. Admittedly, because was Terry Schiavo a human being? Terry Schiavo had absolutely no brain function, and there were people who were saying you can't take her off life support because she's still a human being. Well, yes, she is, and no, she's not. So I'll admit that. We have to.
Terry Schiavo was a grown human, right?
Yes, she was. Who was brain dead.
I'm willing for the sake.
She was a grown human that might have come back.
Hey, Raging.
No, she could not have come back.
Raging.
They're not grown human beings.
Raging.
Go ahead, Cheshire. Let Cheshire speak.
So no, I agree with Raging on this. This is not an issue of a human being, but however, for the sake of the discussion, I am willing to use that definition. We can define it as that for the time being. That's fine.
Here's the way I've explained it in the past. Okay, so if you consider a fetus a human being, well, one thing you have to bear in mind is the mother is absolutely a human being, and what it is this fetus may be a human being, but it's living in a different universe than the rest of us. The mother is in this realm, in this universe with us. They are first and foremost,
So what stage of fetus are we speaking? Because 8 weeks is not a human being, all right? And that is the laws that we are speaking of.
Well, hold on, real quick. Can we? I think the important thing to do is to actually come to a consensus on what everyone.
So I want to just first, John, I apologize for over talking you earlier a second because painkiller's kicking in. But
please share some.
no, I need all of the ones I have. I only have so many. But if I were to come up to you and say, John, I'm going to buy a business, what should I do? What's your answer?
Well, probably I would start with questions, because if you just come up with that basic question, I'm going to want to know.
So there's a little bit
know what kind of business it is you're thinking of starting, what experience you have in, starting a business. A series of questions.
Right? Do you have the finances? Are you prepared? Blah blah blah. Yeah. Right? All good questions.
Straight up, like if we're going to consider these fetuses human beings, can women can they then fucking sue their husbands and divorce them and get child support on a fetus? No, they cannot.
It doesn't matter.
This is
it does, but that doesn't matter because that's not how we define what a human being is. Okay.
Well, and
hey guys, let me take control here and do my job a little bit. Dave, go ahead and finish what you started to say.
Okay.
Dave has the floor.
So if somebody comes up to you and they're asking advice, right? Not just your opinion, but they're asking you advice about whether or not they should get an abortion, which is also a complex, in some cases, longer commitment than owning a business, right? Don't you think that having a default position of just no is an oversimplification of what you should be doing? You should be asking, well, why are you asking the question? What are your concerns? Do you think you're ready? Whatever questions that you might ask before you offer advice so you can actually assess the situation. Otherwise, it's sort of an irresponsible thing. It's just a knee-jerk reaction that you're basing on no information at all.
Well, and I did say earlier that if asked the question on abortion, I would probably have to know more when Cheshire brought that up. I mean, I would ask questions, if needed.
Yeah,
well, that's the difference.
I don't think that we can.
Even though the point has been sort of for the sake of argument seeded, and I think Cheshire brought up, even if you seed this point, it doesn't necessarily give an answer on a pro-life or pro-choice. But here's the thing, and I look at this from the evolutionary perspective. So as a human being, I'm also every species that is lower down on the tree of life. So I'm also an ape, I'm also a mammal, or not every species, but every sort of categorization. That's why we don't have a human being. A human being will never give birth to anything other than a human being, and nothing will ever give birth to something that isn't it, that isn't part of that species. And we can get speciation and new ones coming from it, but the new ones also entail and include everything that they came from in that same way.
Kinds only give birth to the same kind.
Exactly, but not in the. Oh God, I don't want to get into that, but yes. So here's the thing: I was never not a human being ever, but I was a fetus. So I don't see how one can make the claim that I was ever changed from one thing to another.
Because that's not what the claim would be. The claim would be is that you wouldn't be classified as a human yet because what distinguishes a human from other animals is mental capacity.
It's
a biological issue, not a.
Yeah.
Biologically, I am a human. It's just at a different stage.
Right,
biologically,
but you're talking about biological classification, not.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's
So as an atheist,
correct.
So as an atheist, when does life begin? When consciousness begins, right? So
I would say conception.
I would never want to end a pregnancy. Like I would. The mere thought of this makes me sick to think that I would end my daughter before she ever had a chance, right?
Yeah, but you're
it's not
personal stuff on other people's choice, though. Like, not everybody's going to be in that same situation.
Somebody just asked if that was the only reason for that is because you know your daughter.
Yeah. So Naka, that's a good point. Like that, you take a look at this now. And if you had a choice to go back in time, and make the choice, all over again, or make the choice with the mother, you wouldn't do it. because you wouldn't want to
It
deprive your
depends
daughter.
on the situation. I
But,
mean, straight up, honestly, it
like,
depends on the
would you want to?
situation.
Yeah, but would you want to deprive your daughter of the potential experiences that she could have?
That's a loaded question. Hell no, I would not have. But had I
Well,
never
you have
known
that
her, would I
information.
even know the answer to that?
There's a whole lot of
But
information.
we pretend.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
So
you were
there's
asking a
two.
very nuanced question, and Socka, I love you. You were asking a very nuanced question. You were asking me if I would give up my daughter. No. Would I give up my daughter not knowing her? I don't know.
Going back in time alludes to that he has all of that information. There's no way you could possibly have when you would have to make that decision. I don't think that's a fair question.
Yeah, it's
You go back
loaded.
and abort Hitler.
and it takes
What?
away from the difficult decisions of actually having an abortion. Like, that's the thing that people don't speak about. They're like, this is birth control. No, this is hard decisions that people have to live with, right? So this is not such an easy discussion, right? Like I am not advocating for the murder of human beings. I am advocating for the mental health of functional human beings.
Keeping
That's
in mind
what
that a
I'm
pregnancy
advocating for.
may not, knowing that a pregnancy possibly may not go to term anyway, because that happens a lot.
Yeah, it does.
So making a decision based on, well, you've got this might become a human being, maybe. We're talking about what is potential life, not what
And
is
Socka,
already.
this
Right,
is
and
exactly
that's-
where
that's
I
a-
went
that's a
wrong on
great-
Dragnot server earlier.
That's,
I came into this fucking discussion cold.
Yeah, and that's a great discussion. That's a great point. You know, you're talking about something that's a potential human being now.
Well, yeah,
and-
but every jerk off session, every semen in a sock is potential life.
No, it's not. It's
No.
missing the
Oh, yes, it
no,
is.
it's actually it's not because it's missing a very vital. Hold on.
Hey,
Hold
folks.
on, hold on.
Hey, folks.
Okay, guys,
We got
guys,
like
no,
three people
it's-
trying to talk at the same time.
It's not
Go
because
ahead,
we don't.
Socka.
We don't describe semen as potential human beings. We don't describe an
Well,
egg by itself as a potential human being. Like, again, like
Hey, guys. Hey, guys.
Jesus
Whoa.
Christ,
Whoa.
guys.
Stop. There's too much crosstalk.
Like the
Hold
fucking
on.
here.
Nakasuchi. There's too much crosstalk.
I'm gonna
Socka.
remember this shit next time you're in my fucking chat, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, like we don't define like sperm as like the necessary component for potential human life or an egg on its own. You know, these are two things that combined, you know, give you the potential for
Like you
possible
said, we
human life.
don't define
Okay.
it that way.
Yeah,
It's a matter of
that doesn't mean it's
definition.
not. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I have a quick question. How many?
if you jerk off into a sock, there's no potential of that sock growing into a human being.
All right, let me.
If a woman if a
Can I qualify this a little bit?
Hey, guys. Look. There's too much crosstalk. Let Socka finish, and then Cheshire, and then Nakasuchi. Go on, Socka.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is what I'm talking about, like the rhetoric in these discussions when we say things like this, because we know it's not true that we would define something as like simply jerking off is the equivalent of like jerking off into a sock is the equivalent of having an abortion, or anything like that, or it's the same thing as like potential, like that you can call that potential human life or anything like that. Like it's not potential human life because there's no potential in semen by itself to become a human life.
Right.
So
And
it's
if
just a ridiculous component.
All right, Cheshire was next. Go ahead, Cheshire.
All right. Two things. One, that wasn't the point I was getting at. Secondly, how many women who are sexually active, who have a period, have a fertilized egg that goes through the system? On average, do you have any idea?
No idea.
Right. So how many of those potential lives that you can't put a number on because the study is nearly impossible to qualify to be able to do, should those women be responsible for?
How many should they be responsible for? You mean for like the natural, so if an egg fails to seat in the woman's uterus, or something else happens that the fertilized egg doesn't proceed into like a state of zygote or whatever the next stage is after that, I can't remember. How many are they responsible for?
The egg has to attach to the uterine lining and then also manage to develop after the fact. Based on menstrual cycles, it can do all of those things and still pass anyway.
Yep.
So if that's the case, that is potential life, correct?
Mhm.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah. So what choice did they make to end that life?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Should a woman be required to, if a woman can take hormones to ensure that egg implants properly, should she be forced to do that?
So here's the point.
That's a good question.
Here is the point, and I'm sorry.
That's
Let's go ahead. Let knock
I'm sorry.
and he's been chopping at the bit here.
So
And
here's
then
the
after
point,
that, and then after that, Dave.
you cannot make a human being without said semen, right? So male and female reproduction happens in opposite ways. Male is external, females is internal. So when we spend our external seed, it is the same exact thing as a woman getting an abortion. It is the same exact thing. I masturbate frequently. I am committing abortion frequently. It is the same exact thing. And to think that it's not is a very sexist thought.
okay. Does anybody? Sorry, I'm sorry, raging, but is that an opinion that anybody else in the room shares?
Probably not.
Well, I mean, at least
Yes. I think we all share the opinion. We did not need the imagery of him masturbating. That is one I am reasonably convinced we all
What
can
I'm
agree
saying
on.
is, without that seed that I just spit into that sock, a baby was not born, right? So
to back up, you could make the argument is should the man be required anytime they masturbate to save all of those semen for some reason?
exactly, that is my point.
He's not.
No.
Yeah, he's not saying it very well, but that's what he's getting at, I think.
No, I would say no to that.
I mean, the flaw in that argument. Hold on, Dave.
How is it's a flaw because they do a male perspective.
Nakatsuchi. Hold on. Let me get in here, and then Dave right after me. The flaw with that argument is that if you didn't ejaculate into the sock, but instead ejaculated into a woman, only one of those sperm would actually get to an egg.
Well, one of them would probably, if the situation was right. So one of those seeds, I just committed murder, according to right-wing pro-life logic.
I might be able to qualify this a little bit toward
Please.
Nakatsuchi's point. Just to kind of turn this slightly the other way. So we've put Nick made a point of should a woman be required to take some kind of hormone so that way she could either that she would be able to carry anything that was potentially a life to term. Well, how about go the other way and say if a man can be sterilized, should they be required to not potentially create that potential life in the first place?
Well, I think we're talking two different types of potential too. I mean, there's the potential to actually
I'm not saying
create.
the semen itself. I'm saying that if you are actively having sex, should a man be required to neutralize his sperm to not cause a potential life that you don't want to receive or that you don't want to take care of?
There's potential before the event and there's potential after the event. So I mean, once a woman is impregnated, I think those are two different.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that why is it on the woman to take the hormones? Why can it not go the other way and say, well, maybe all men should be snipped at the age of 12,
exactly,
so that way they cannot impregnate anybody up until a point where they can get reconnected.
I am actually I believe in contraceptives. Okay, they're great. Okay.
Every sperm is sacred. Every sperm is great.
Hey, I just want to ask. I want to ask Socka. I want to ask Socka real quick. Socka, what with your name being Socka Count, what do you think of all this talk about ejaculating into socks?
You know what? It's fine. I'm partially triggered here, but I think I'll survive.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
I'll be a lot stiffer than I was, but that's fine.
Go ahead, Dave.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can have all of the discussion you want on whether something is moral or whether or not it's not moral or should be or shouldn't be legal. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who has the right to assess somebody else's life circumstances and impose choices on them. And I don't think anybody does, but the person whose responsibility it is to decide if they want to have the child or not. Period.
Yeah, but
I would
we
like
all
to
have-
point out.
But that's the problem with that is like and people have made this argument, for people that have actually advocated that there should be that you should be allowed to essentially abort your children after they're born while they're still in that dependent stage. People have made that argument. Like, who are we to, decide whether or not, a mother has a child for a month and says, you know what, I can't take the screaming. I'm not cut out for this. That's it. I'm just going to drown it in the bathtub.
You're
I don't
seriously underplaying the nuance of that particular situation.
what like the inconvenience of having a child and then
because you're using the inconvenience of having a child.
So
you're calling it the inconvenience of having a child.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so when we get into these discussions and we talk about the fraction of the cases in which that an abortion might be necessary to save the wife or the mother, and I didn't bring up earlier when you had mentioned this, that why are we talking about this small fraction of an account in cases where an abortion might be justified. But I talk about the inconvenience of it, which is a case which is much more likely to happen when a woman is going to state that, that they're not ready for a kid or that it's an inconvenience, it's in their life at this point in time, that in those cases, in those cases, it's purely an inconvenience. And the fact that people get abortions, the fact that women will have an abortion because it's an inconvenience on their life at that time is not a contentious viewpoint. This does happen, so we can talk about all day long about the cases where an abortion might be necessary, but I bring up the fact that the majority of abortions that happen due to because a woman feels inconvenienced by having a kid at that time.
Okay, so
and all of a sudden I can't bring that up.
No, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is that we've gone over multiple times, and Raging has brought up multiple times that abortion is not a matter of birth control. It is not birth control. Secondly, I would like to bring up, how much do you guys know, just out of curiosity, again, this is not supposed to be a leading question, I'm not trying to trick you. How much do you guys know about what birth control does to a woman's body and psyche?
It sucks. It's terrible. Like for example, like I have 3 kids. Okay. My wife's not on birth control now.
And
but
how much do you know about how much it affects development of somebody who's younger?
Someone who's younger. Somebody who's younger. No, I don't know what happens. I know what happens to my wife, and that's what it.
Right. So, okay. So, for example, if you've got somebody who's a lot of people are taking birth control younger for a plethora of reasons. Sometimes it's to regulate periods. Sometimes it's because they're going to be sexually active at a young age, as there are definitely people who are sexually active at the ages of at minimum, and to put a light one on it, 14. So how do you think, if you don't, well, you said you don't know, I don't mean to press that, but those birth control methods are incredibly, they affect a woman's body and will affect their development and their internal systems their entire time. So I want to move back onto the point of why would we do it this way versus snipping a man does literally nothing.
I mean, if that's what you want to argue, it's fine. I think that.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Because we're putting all of this pressure on women when we could remove it entirely.
Yeah.
For the cost of nothing, it costs less money. It does less damage. It doesn't interfere with anybody's development as a young person. It means that even if if a woman is raped, if that man snipped, he's not getting her pregnant.
Sure, let's do that then.
So you're for that proposition?
I'm for the proposition of if this is what she's putting as a hypothetical scenario. If you have to compare like 2 evils here between abortion and snipping men, like which one do I think would be like the more moral solution in the end? Well, I'd go with the snipping men option in that case, So then
should men be required to be snipped?
Should men be required to be snipped?
Yes, legally.
Well, in my viewpoint, no.
Okay, so why would a woman be forced to carry a pregnancy the whole way, but a man wouldn't be required to be snipped?
So when you force somebody into like an invasive medical surgery, okay, like, you know, there's a lot of different questions about personal autonomy that we can have there. You know, somebody getting pregnant, okay, it's not in, you know, the majority of cases, we can bring up cases of rape, okay, we can bring up all those, like, those exceptions there, but in the majority of cases, this was a choice that they made that they could have solved, you know, by either not having sex or by going on birth control. They had options that they could take.
Same with the guy though. So okay, so let's do this.
It
So
wouldn't
let's
be
say that
invasive, it would be preventative.
let's say that if a guy agrees that he's not going to have sex at all, then he doesn't need to be snipped. But if he's going to have sex, then he needs to be snipped, and that way we will ostensibly, in this fictional world, stop all abortions, right?
Yeah, in a hypothetical world, in a possible world scenario, that could be something there.
So then why
but I can tell you, like, right now, like,
you're still going to have some abortions because somebody's decided to have a child, and partway through the pregnancy, they find out perhaps there's a potential risk for them, or other number of factors come up. I think you might lower the rate of abortion, but you wouldn't get rid of it altogether.
Well, no.
Right, and I think that,
That's
that's a good point, and I think that this is like the other nuance of the conversation I was talking about earlier. When we talk about people being pro-life and pro-choice, I don't think that there's anybody that, you know, you hear people will sometimes conflate this, like, with pro-abortion. I don't think anybody's pro-abortion. Okay, nobody's like, cheering it on, like, yeah, go do it, like, whatever. We all have this feeling that, the approaches in this kind of situation is like the necessary evil. You know, it's like, well, in the grand scheme of things.
Can I bring my point back around real quick?
I think it's fine. I don't think it's evil at all. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
So if there is opportunities, you know, things that we can do to take away some of the negative stigma that some women face with pregnancies, that we can decrease the health risks that women have during pregnancies. If we can do everything possible that can encourage and welcome and be virtuous to carry children into the world,
it's not just risks. Like when you talk about somebody potentially losing their life, right? That can mean very different things. That could be that somebody is going to physically die as a result of a pregnancy, so they want to end have an abortion, right? But I mean, you could have somebody who just didn't want to be pregnant. They get pregnant, and if they have the baby, they will lose their career, or they will lose certain opportunities that they otherwise have. That is their life. They may have lifelong dreams and ambitions that are simply not compatible with having a child. And
that's terrible. Like, and I agree. Like, that's terrible. The idea of having a child should never be like this choice where it's going to ruin your life. It should ruin your career. It should ruin, set you back. Like, yeah, it's difficult, like after you've had a child to do things.
I just want to bring my point back around real quick, just to cap this one off real quick.
Okay.
Why is this the discussion we're having in the legal system then about women being required to carry these babies that are either accidents or they don't want, or it's a horrible rape situation, or it's a medical problem? Why is that the conversation, and why isn't there a conversation going on about the men in the situation? Why is this focused only on the women when you've agreed that this is obviously a way better option to just have men optionally snipped?
So in the hypothetical situation we brought up here, okay, is that I think there's a certain amount of personal autonomy that comes in between the forced kind of medical procedure that's going on there and the option to terminate a life inside you. I think that those are two completely different things.
Okay, but one of the conversations isn't happening. Why?
Why aren't we having a conversation about putting legislature through that forces people into medical procedures?
Okay, so a pregnancy is a medical procedure. Are you serious?
No. He meant something. He meant something else. But you were asking, I think, Socka, for clarification, and I think you were asking for clarification as to why it is that we're not having the converse. So I think what she meant to say was, why are we not having the conversation yes, you're correct. Why are we not having the conversation about men having that medical procedure? Why not? Especially and let's assume it's not even a medical procedure. What if there's a pill that a man can take that, so long as he's taking it's the birth control for men, can we at least force them, if there are no other consequences, say, if you're going to be sexually active, men are required to do this so as to avoid why is that
it okay
conversation
to
not
force
happening?
to force women, but not okay to force men?
Yeah.
So, are we forcing men into taking birth control?
Yes.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, until the woman has consented that they want to risk pregnancy.
Yeah. Why is that a problem? Socka?
Are you asking me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think everyone's asking you.
So I'm trying to get to the part where we've forced a medical procedure on somebody in the current law.
We are talking about forcing women to carry a pregnancy. Why is it okay to force a woman to carry a baby to term for 9 months that could potentially either ruin her life or at potential medical issues or whatever those issues may be? Doesn't matter. You are forcing this person to carry this thing to term, but it's not okay to force a man to take anything, to do anything at all.
So again, you're asking me what's the difference between forcing somebody to carry out a completely natural act of
No, I'm asking why it's
and
okay to force one group of people but not the other.
Who are we forcing the people into a medical procedure in the other scenario?
Socka, I think if you reframe what you're trying to say, I think you're taking an extra step. You're taking 2 extra steps in your logic, and I think if you slow down and go step by step, you're going to be a little clearer as to what it is I think you're trying to say.
Okay. In the one position that you're putting out here is we're talking about forcing people into a medical procedure or to take a substance that they don't want, okay, that they might not want. So what we're doing is that we are creating legislation that we are going to put people into unnecessary medical procedures that, essentially against their will, okay?
It doesn't have to be a medical procedure. It could be just a pill.
It doesn't matter. In forcing anybody to take anything to their body against their will is a violation of their personal autonomy.
Is it now?
Yeah.
So, an unwanted child is what?
Something they probably shouldn't have had sex to get.
So you're saying
they made that
women
choice.
should be forced.
Okay, so what happens if a condom breaks? Did they choose to have sex with a potential baby involved?
If the condom broke, there are other avenues that people can take.
Oh, is there? What if they didn't notice?
Well, and even those other avenues, I think you'll find most of them, like the day after pill, is actually technically considered an abortion by most.
Technically considered,
so
yeah.
I think there are fewer options than you may.
Yeah,
Steve makes a really good point. Why should someone be forced to do something against their will? Period.
So, were they unaware that there was a risk of pregnancy when they had sex?
Doesn't matter. It's against their will.
Were they aware that there was a risk of pregnancy when they had sex?
It was against their will.
Having an abortion.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand. Like, at what point was that they do something against their will?
Carrying the pregnancy is against their will.
Were they aware there was a risk when they had sex?
It doesn't matter. Should they be forced to if it's against their will?
How is it irrelevant?
It's irrelevant because if that person decided, hey, I'm not having any babies right now and I'm going to have sex, and if there's a risk of pregnancy, I will get an abortion, and they've already decided that, then ostensibly for them, unless some asshole comes around and tries to force them to carry the pregnancy to term, there is no risk of having a baby.
Socka?
What, was there a point that I was supposed to respond there to? I'm still asking what the part against their will was.
The pregnancy. They didn't willingly get pregnant.
Let's assume that for whatever they had every reason to expect that they were not going to get pregnant. They had every reason. Their boyfriend said, "Hey, I'm sterile or I've been snipped." Turned out he lied. So now she is at a point where she is facing a pregnancy, and there was no reasonable expectation of her having to face that, but for the fact that she was deceived by another party. So now it seems I think you're going to have a conflict with the two positions.
Socka, what Chester's saying is some of these new laws that they're trying to implement in these states are saying, okay, a 13-year-old is raped by her father and becomes pregnant. She is going to be forced to carry that pregnancy to term. That's the forced against your will that Cheshire's talking about.
Well, I'm not convinced. Sokka's already said he's
well.
against those. I think Socka already said he's against those proposals. So I don't think that's the question, because I think he said he was against them.
My thing is that none of the prior things are relevant to whether or not this person is being forced to carry a pregnancy. The circumstances of that pregnancy are not relevant to whether or not they're being forced to carry it or not.
Right, that's what I was trying to say. Is it's the forced part of it. It's the you have to carry this pregnancy to term part of those laws. Like,
yeah, well, the legal aspect, like I said, I disagree with it. I don't think that any of this stuff should be legislated in. Okay, I don't think that there should be. So if a woman wants to get an abortion, that's her choice. Okay, I'll let you guys know that's my position on it. In that sense, that I'm pro-choice. Okay, but in the sense that I'm pro-life, is that I think that every possible measure should be taken to decrease the stigma that some women have during pregnancies, so that it doesn't impact their job, their career, their schooling, their education, any of that stuff. That that there's enough support systems in place for like daycare or childcare after the child's born. And if someone doesn't want to raise a child, that there should be a reforming of the foster care system that allows for children to go into safe environments and being able to adopted by other families or taken in by other families that want that of children that are put up by
the adoption system is.
Pardon me?
Do you know how fucked up the adoption system is?
Absolutely, the adoption system. Hold on, I agree. The adoption system is fucked up. The foster care system is fucked up. But that's where like I said, the issue that I have is that those institutions, and this is why I say that it shouldn't be legislated. Like these laws shouldn't be legislated. But if there's anything that we want to change, we should be changing the system in place that that children should be brought to term. And if they're not wanted by their parents, that there should be avenues that are present for them. And I think that every resource available to make those systems better should be in place. That there's no stigma to carrying a pregnancy or getting rid of a child if you don't want it.
I think that the priority should be to have as many children and lives come into this world that have an opportunity to be healthy, cared for, and happy. And if you give access to abortion, you let people not have kids when they don't want them so that they're able to wait until they're prepared or they actually want children, then you're probably going to have more cared for children instead of people floating around in foster homes and in fucking care and adoption centers and all this other kind of thing because somebody didn't want the baby. That's not an
and that's the other thing too, is that better education systems in place, that people are more aware of their actions, that having sex can lead to pregnancy because there's no 100% foolproof way of not to get pregnant with any of the contraceptive means that we have now. That these are things that we can kind of work towards.
Way to not have a baby.
Okay,
so I agree with all of these things. So I have a question for you then, Socka. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. So if we're in the future where we've got enough intersex going on that you could easily have a man transition into a woman with all of the woman bits, and a woman gets pregnant and doesn't want the baby, should the man be required to carry it?
I think that by that stage, that I think, I mean, I'm not sure how the birth would work. If this is like the what is this? What's the movie? Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether that's capable because I think if you have a uterus and you
that's why it's a hypothetical.
if you can
that's the great thing about philosophy. You can just make this stuff up. That's why I love it. So it's done. There's the point.
All right.
Okay.
It's possible in this analogy.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like if the technology exists, not even just with intersex people, but if the technology exists that you can transfer a fetus from one uterus to another, and people want that procedure, if that's another avenue that's available.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if the man should be required to carry the child if the woman doesn't want to. Should they be lawfully required to do that?
No, I don't. Lawful. Why are we fucking going back to lawfully? When has everything I ever said had to do with having to legally, to do anything here? I'm against any type of legislation that's going to force people to do anything. Okay, but if you have a uterus, if you're a man and you have a uterus and you want to carry a child because someone doesn't want to carry their child, then
so
Godspeed.
As long as they want to, but not if they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great. So the woman doesn't have to carry a child if she doesn't want to. Perfect. Hooray.
That strikes me as an extraordinarily indefensible position. I mean, if That strikes me as an extraordinary. Let's assume that the man and the woman were both equal participants in creating the child, which in this futuristic world we're going to say is still how it works.
Yeah.
And the woman does not wish to carry it. Should the man be morally obligated to carry it?
In that situation, I think that, yeah, sure. I think that in this hypothetical situation, there could be a moral obligation to do that.
That's
I
awfully
think
hedged. That's a yeah, sure, followed by I think he might maybe be obligated.
I'm trying to really kind of wrap my head around the scenario here. But Cheshire, for that, Cheshire, sorry, hold on a second, Cheshire, for that really cool got you moment. No, it's not the same. It's not the same thing because one of them still involves terminating the life of a pregnancy. The other one doesn't. Okay, it's like I'm not even sure what you tried to establish there.
I mean, if you're not sure what I'm trying to establish, maybe you shouldn't accuse me of getting gotcha points.
No, I think he's giving it. I think what he's saying is he's going to give it to us by actually not hedging and giving an actual. He is going to give us. I think that's what you're saying, right, Socka? Here's your gotcha. This is my opinion. Or did I misunderstand that?
No, I will give you the gotcha for the future that there's a moral obligation for the man to carry it there. Okay, but to the point where it's just like, haha, so a woman doesn't want to carry it, she doesn't have to carry it. No, because one of them is transplanting and preserving life, the other one's still getting rid of life. It's not comparable to the example we're putting out there.
Whether or not it's willful or being forced. I'm not saying whether or not something should or should not be terminated. I'm saying if the woman is unwilling, does not want to carry the baby, and the man doesn't want to carry the baby, then neither of them should have to.
Well, at that point in time, in this hypothetical world, like maybe there's a way to do it, raise it in the lab. I don't know. Okay? That's the problem when you're doing like the hypotheticals.
That's a different position, and that's fine. If you want to say that, oh, well, a woman doesn't have to carry a fertilized egg, then we're in agreement. A woman should not have to carry a fertilized egg. And they're not.
If there's an opportunity to transplant it to somebody else or to something else, then that's the hypothetical world.
So then great.
So in this hypothetical world, all we've established is that the preservation of life is still a good thing.
All right, so can you guys hear me?
We're talking about will.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, because like I don't know what's going on with my internet, so I'm on my phone. But Socka, I don't know. Like I missed a lot because my internet went crazy. But what you're pretty much saying is that women, because you bear the child, fuck you, do it our way.
Well, okay, so here's the thing.
I've never said that.
If you're gonna go ahead and say that if there are other options, the women should focus on those other options. So they might not be required to carry the baby, but there should be maybe another option to take said fertilized egg. So 3 things to that. 1 being that okay, then move funding to make that possible because it's not. So change back to just like a side note of the legislation, you would need to adjust the legislation and it still shouldn't be about whether or not a woman should get an abortion or not. It still goes to that, well, if we're looking at preserving life, we should move towards doing that, not taking away this choice from people.
Hey,
what you just said is my entire position.
Sure, yeah, okay. I'm trying to,
that is, if you want to just summarize my position, things that go to preserving life without taking away the ability of the choice of the woman.
Sure, that's fine. I'm agreeing with you. Secondly, you're still running into you're going to run into an issue of 1, you're taking away the choice from people. 2, you're going to be starting to talk about whether or not it's possible to basically raise lab babies. And if we're at a position where we're able to do that and it's functional, then we should just always do that and sterilize everybody because fuck it.
Hey, Cheshire, nice job steel manning Sokka's argument there too. Hey, Socka, I'm a little surprised that you seem unwilling to take part in the thought experiment that Cheshire's putting out there. You're kind of hemming and hawing on that. I don't understand why, because.
Oh no, I'm not hemming and hawing on it. I'm saying that the problem with the thought experiment that I feel that Cheshire is putting out there is that it's a great representative of what my position is that any initiative that gets put forward to help in the preservation of life, okay, is I think is a good endeavor to take. And the reason why I don't think that most of these examples isn't analogous to what we're talking about here is because when we still compare this to the topic of discussion is we're still talking about the termination of life. Okay, so like there's this that detachment there between.
But you
the topic.
refuse to go along with the idea of men
should
taking
be what
preventative.
is life. Like I do not accept the premise that an abortion is the termination of life. I do not accept that.
I don't think that's a premise. I mean, it's absolutely the termination of life.
Yeah, there's
it's the termination of life.
There's something that's living,
Life, yeah.
and then it's not living. So, I mean, I don't know.
So would an 8-month-old fetus live without the mother? Is that life?
Well, hold on. Life can be used, so we're equivocating. I think.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. An 8-week-old fetus, as a lot of these heartbeat bills are portraying, is that life?
Bacteria is life. Bacteria is life. So I think we're going to have to differentiate how we're using life, because I think some people are using it one way, others are using it another way. But bacteria is life.
Every single day, right? Like I could wipe my skin right now and I'm killing bacteria. I'm speaking of human life.
So there's a big issue here that we kind of glossed over, is that, again, it's perfectly fine for the woman to have choice, but we should work on preserving life, should be the goal.
Yes.
Then, which we agree on. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with accepting that premise. So we go back to my initial question. Why is it not okay for putting that on men? Why is it not okay to have them snipped?
Because it has to do with invasive medical procedures and for people's own personal free will.
We already went over it. It could be a pill. It doesn't have to be a medical procedure at all.
Even the injection of a pill. I would love. You know what? I would love contraceptive.
The injection.
So does that mean?
I would love a male contraceptive. That would be amazing if such a thing.
This takes out your entire argument about a woman should be on birth control or something to prevent it ahead of time.
How does that take out the argument?
Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that for men, but let's make women do it. I mean, it's so sexist.
Because you're forcing the woman to take the responsibility for the birth control.
Hey, let me add this real quick. Let me add this real quick. Socka. If a woman cannot give birth vaginally and has to have a C-section, that's an invasive medical procedure.
Yep.
That's a really good point.
Most of the time you have to have your walls snipped. Does that count as an invasive medical procedure?
Yeah, episiotomy. What about a episiotomy? That's an invasive.
I think Socka denies. You see, I think here's the thing. I think Socka feels, and maybe I'm putting words in his mouth, but I think Sokka's position is
a vasectomy.
I think his position is that, and I say, well, I shouldn't say his position. I think there's a problem here, Socka, because what it appears to me that you're doing is, I see your point. I think it's a pretty good point, which is, hey, look, once the egg is fertilized, and if you take that as the starting point, then we have to. I'm going to have to go in like 10 minutes because I'm starting to fade here. But if you take that as the starting point, then you use that to inform our decisions, and I think. What I find interesting about that point is it does necessarily entail a denial of how you're assuming that there was free will in getting there, that there was a choice, and you're assuming all sorts of things that don't need to be assumed to go from that point. And the question is, if we are at that point right now and we don't know how the woman got there, and you seem to say, well, it was her choice or she had a say, you're making all these assumptions. Why not start at that point and say, what's wrong going from there?
I would also like to point out that Socka has specifically made it about the woman having made this choice because she chose to have sex. Well, so did the man. So why is it okay for one and not the other?
Here's a question, Josh.
Well, unfortunately, I think that sometimes biology isn't fair, and the woman encompasses more of a responsibility for the actions.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting position. So now we've moved on to something else. why, so as an enlightened society, as a society that understands that there are differences and it may not be fair one way or the other and one person holds responsibility, then why should it be up to, in what case, if the woman is more responsible after the pregnancy has now happened, why is it still not up to the man to get snipped? Because that would be more preventative than anything the woman could ever do besides getting their tubes tied, which is very invasive and very not reversible.
And let's not beat around the bush, right?
Nakasuchi, let Socka answer, though. Let Socka answer the question was posed to him, and then you can go, Nak.
Well, then like in 30 minutes, I'll ask my fucking question. Seriously.
Well, go ahead, Socka.
No, Naka could ask us first, so well, if that's okay with you, John. Oh,
sure, go ahead, Nak.
I'm lost now. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go the fuck ahead. Because I'm so, you know what? Every time I fucking ask you a question, this fucking happens.
So mad.
Well, but
so mad.
See, Nakasuchi, Cheshire asked Socka a question, and then you jumped in before Socka could respond.
And then I tried to back her up with a fucking another question, right? Yeah. So, I mean, this is how conversations work, John.
Okay. Hey, Nakasuchi, why don't you go drink another half a bottle of liquor, buddy?
Well, you know what I'm gonna fucking do? I'm gonna fucking cuss you out.
Okay.
I mean, fuck that. You know what? Fuck you, John. Fuck you, dude. Let Socka answer for 30 minutes, please.
Hey, listen, Socka is outnumbered in this chat by like 5-1. So I think even if people don't like what he's saying, the fact that he's being given a really good chance to posit his opinions, he's outnumbered 5-1, and he could leave at any minute. So
anyway,
well, I don't think that like I think that like when we get into these conversations there's certain principles that I kind of start from. Like I'm not starting from the idea that a woman should be required to carry a pregnancy to term. Okay, like that's not like some position I'm in, and I'm not trying to find things that support that. Okay, like the positions that I have. Okay, like for the sake of this conversation, like the conclusions that I've reached through other avenues is that I don't think that people should be forced to have unnecessary medical procedures on them. So when we talk about things like forced vasectomies or forced I'm also like I'm completely pro vaccination. I think everybody should vaccinate their kids, but I'm also against any type of legislation that requires people to vaccinate their kids. I think that there's a better argument for going out there and informing the public more, educating them on why this is something that they should do. That's the avenue that one should take when approaching those discussions, rather than trying to legislate mandatory vaccinations. So when it comes to something like this as well, is that again, like I don't think that anybody should be forced or legislated into any type of unnecessary medical procedure, or to take any, forced into any type of pills or vaccinations that's going to,
we already agreed with
make them
this.
sterile.
Not addressing my question.
Right. So, okay.
Here, before you go on, let me get in here for a quick minute. Okay, I just want everybody to know, Raging Atheist did not leave of his own accord. I ejected him. Now, let me quote from the rules that Steve has on his channel. One of the rules is, moderator is God, whether you were an atheist or not. My job is to keep the conversation going smoothly. If someone directly asks another interlocutor a question, that interlocutor should have the chance to respond to that question before anybody jumps in. Now, I hope me and Nakasuchi can remain friends after this, because I still consider him a friend, but he was out of line tonight, and I don't think that has anything to do with him as a person. I think he just wasn't holding his liquor well tonight. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm owning that. I booted him. He didn't leave of his own accord. And just remember this in the future, okay? The crosstalk does not translate well over the air. When people crosstalk, all that the listeners get is a garbled mess, sounding like the Peanuts parents, from Charlie Brown. So at any rate, go back to the discussion. Cheshire, go ahead. The floor is yours.
So I just want to make sure that we already agreed with everything that you said up to this point on invasive da 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 da. But you didn't address my question, because my question revolved around you saying that the woman carries more responsibility, and it's fine for whatever to happen with her in carrying pregnancies, or should be morally obligated to carry said pregnancy. Doesn't matter how that pregnancy got there, but it's not okay if it's not invasive, if it's not any of these things. Why is one okay and not the other?
Okay, so like I said, I'm going to try to start at the beginning here and work towards this. And
I'm really tired of hearing your argument, though. Can you just answer the question?
So why? The question, because the question's been asked several times, and
you haven't answered.
What haven't I? So what haven't I answered? Why is it okay for why? Okay, ask the question again.
I could try reframing it in a way that might.
Sure, that'd be
great. I'm sure he'll steelman me. Go for it, Nick.
No, well, no, I'm going to try to steelman Socka and try a different view. So, what was I going to say? All right. Wow. Okay. The question. Okay. So he was about to, I think, give the argument again about. All right. So let's. No, you know what? I'm sorry. I got distracted. Socka, why don't you start your answer again, and maybe that will refresh me on where I was thinking about this.
Okay. My position, okay, is that people should not be forced into invasive medical procedures, including forced pills, and that the preservation of life is a moral obligation that all of us have. Okay?
All right.
Now, from those two premises, I think that it's logically consistent for me to maintain kind of a pro-life position, but also not I'm also against the legislation again for that's being brought in here. Okay, but I want to see that every avenue is exhausted that takes away the stigma that would make a woman think that an abortion would be a better option.
Okay.
Social issues are different.
They are different, and that's not going to solve the problem, because if I mean the problem is really, does a woman have that free will? And I could only see one argument against it, which is it seems to me is sort of where you're trying to go with this, which is that it really is a human life, and in a meaningful sense. Now, I think you need to get off of potential, because I think each of you are using potential in a different way, and since her way isn't compatible with yours, I think that's where there's this disconnect, because what you're saying is again, you're starting at the point of conception.
Further. Yeah. No, Nick is right. I'm pushing potential one step further. You're saying the potential of life only applies to when an egg is already fertilized, and I'm saying you can take the responsibility ahead of time to make sure that does not happen, and in a way that is more consistent.
But in his view, that's a moot argument. But so here's another potential argument. I'm not sure I want to give Socka ammunition or give a stronger case, but we're so close to, again, the Durr argument, which I've just always liked because I knew the guy, and I thought it was a very good philosophical argument. So we had asked about why might you be able to either legislate it, or where does the morality come in? If we talk about slavery, there was a time when blacks were not considered human beings. They simply were not considered human beings. So the human being, by definition, was a white person. Now, in the South, the position was, we here have made our own decisions. If you don't like slavery, do not own a slave. And the North has no right to impose their values of anti-slavery on us. They believe that blacks are human beings. Fine. I think if you take a look at a black guy, you can tell right off the bat they're not, right? Because their skin isn't the right color. So based on that, I think there's an argument to be had. And like I said, I'm not necessarily where what you can say is, look, if you accept that it is a life, and if you take potential out of the equation and say I am required to defend it based on that, and when we have two human beings that are in conflict, whether it's somebody's playing their car stereo too long or somebody is playing their car stereo too long and nobody wants to hear it, whatever it is, you default to the greater right, which would be life over being inconvenienced. That is the only argument I could see. And Socka, there's an idea that might also help resolve
it doesn't quite address,
get us stuck somewhere else.
It doesn't quite address the issue of why a woman is being held more responsible than the man is.
Yeah, because I mean,
that requires
biology is unfair, right?
It doesn't, and I'd have ways that I might think about, but I'll leave it to Socka.
On top of that, if we're making the point that, well, the woman consented to this even if she was on birth control or the condom broke or whatever, you still consented to sex. The woman is still being the one in this situation who is required to take hormone-changing medication. Why?
Socka, I've given you something I hoped would dislodge where you guys are stuck. And
nope, I'm not letting this go because you cannot go ahead and say the woman is more responsible for the pregnancy when it takes both people to take that fucking chance to begin with.
Can I ask you this, Chesh? Really quick?
So, okay.
I just want to ask Chesh a question really quick where she stands on something slightly different.
Yeah.
Let's say woman gets pregnant. Man decides he wants nothing to do with the pregnancy.
Sure.
Right? Do you think there should be an early legal process or something where they can essentially remove their obligation financially and paternally? Just say, I do not want to be part of this?
Yeah, as long as it's early enough on. I think that should be fine. I think a process should absolutely be put in place to protect men from being taken advantage of and from not having to have obligations.
Or 6 months or something.
Yep.
Because there's cases where women get themselves pregnant and trapped people. It does happen.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and I think there's an egalitarian way too, where yeah. No,
I don't know what that process would have to be, and I'm not sure what would have to be required. Nor do I know what the time frame would have to be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if because it would definitely have to be related to whatever trimester that you were allowed to have an abortion at. So if you're not allowed to have an abortion and you're with this guy who's consented the whole way, and then they're like, oh well, 6 months in, you know what, this guy's kind of shitty. Bye. Yeah. Well, no, you agreed to do it with that person. That's part of the consent.
I would say right up until whatever the cutoff point for abortion is.
Right, but if you're not allowed to have an abortion, well,
then exactly.
All right. Well, I got to get going. I'm exhausted and I'm rambling and not making any sense. So, thank you all very much. Yeah, John, you're not going to hit the obvious. You hit me with the code at the beginning. You're not going to hit me with the obvious. I just gave you a freebie there.
I'm sorry. I had my nose in live chat, so I didn't.
The answer is Nick. When do you ever make sense? Is the appropriate, but that's all right.
So Nick, thank you so much for coming by.
My pleasure.
And is there anything you want to plug? You got anything upcoming?
You know what? I got the debates on my channel. Anyone who wants to sub to that at some point, I'm going to certainly do a sub drive. But it was just I thought you did a great job. I thought you did great booting him too. So it was a lot of fun, and I'll plug some other time. But thank you all very much.
All right. Good night, Nick.
Night.
Good night.
So, welcome back, Jay Pasick, by the way.
Thank you.
So, the rest of you, where do we go from here? Do you think we've beat this horse long enough?
I think Chess wants to hold me to an answer in this one still.
I mean, you're welcome. I'm fine with calling it here. That's fine.
Also, who's going to be our 100th sub? We need one more. Overall.
Oh, shit. You're at 99 now? Oh, awesome.
Here, I'll do it. This is the Slippery Slope is the channel?
Slippery Slope Show, right?
Slippery Slope Show.
All right, hold on a second. Slippery Slope Show. There you are.
Boom. Somebody made a good point in the chat that more couples should just do anal.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I was your 100th subscriber.
Fuck yeah, we got Jim.
Let's start winding this down, and we're going to give everybody a last word and a chance to plug anything they have to plug. Let's start with Cheshire.
I'm not subbing.
You monster! How could you? We're working so hard. Yeah, no, we're looking at launching in September. It's going to be a show about that logical fallacies for the most part. It's going to be probably in the end of Ridiculous Town. And it's mostly just to bring people together and point out dumb shit that everybody does all of the time, and hopefully stop them from doing more dumb shit.
It's primarily going to be comedy.
It's going to be comedy. It's going to be comedy. It's not going to be. There'll be information and interesting things in it, but it's mostly just going to be fun.
It's going to be a way for people to have fun, have a laugh.
Jay Pasek asks, define dumb shit.
Well, dumb shit is when you've done something that you really, really shouldn't do, and it makes you look bad.
Okay. So, Dave, anything else? Anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to plug?
I was just gonna say, people want to see the concept sketch for R and Raw. That's up on the Twitter as well.
Okay. Yeah. Socka, any last words?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that probably, like, most of the people that have engaged me before or know me, like, I know Jay and probably you, John, as well. I am a bit of a contrarian. Okay. I just, I don't think that there's, like I said, when it comes to the topic of abortion, I think that it's, there is a lot of rhetoric that gets lost, and I think that there is room for a good conversation. I think that this was a good conversation tonight. But, like, at the end of the day, my position, my opinions on it are mine. And I think that, like Dave pointed out earlier, it's really hard for me to impose my morals on other people. I can't do it. Like, the viewpoints. I don't think it's fair to do that, to impose anything on anybody through any type of act of legislation, which is why I'm also, avidly against the abortion bills that are, trying to be passed right now. So, like, for that, I think that, conversation should be had on this topic. I would like more people to get rid of some of the rhetoric that comes into the conversation, but I mean, other than that, I really don't have much else to offer.
Well, I gotta say that I think it was Nick, or I believe it was Nick, that said, "Gee, Socka, wow, you're going against 5 people here." And while I agree with that, I want to point out the fact that Cheshire was in here during this whole discussion as the only female in the room, and I just want to applaud her for taking that on. A bunch of men talking about something that really doesn't.
Whoa! Are you assuming my gender?
I earnestly don't think any of you are like sexist or against women in this setting at all, and I don't think you guys are dishonest or are trying to be dishonest, even if that were the case. My only point almost this entire time has been, why are women being held responsible when it takes 2 to tango?
Yeah. Jay Pasek, you have any final words? Anything you want to plug?
No.
Somebody said because we're irresponsible pricks.
Who said that?
Yes, by calling me a prick, you're spot on. Thank you. But anyway, no, I was away for a majority of that when the conversation got heated, because I had to do. I'm here at work, so I have nothing to plug. But it sounds like it was an interesting conversation. I'll have to go back and watch the portions that I missed.
Well, I'm gonna have to go and change the title of this stream after the fact to Cheshire Vic Sock Account Thunderdome.
Oh, hell yeah!
One female versus.
We should actually set up for this discussion at some point and stick to just this one and call it that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
John, just call it this: one woman, many men, Thunderdome.
Yeah. Well, and I can't take credit for that. Somebody. I think.
No.
Somebody put that in chat. I think it might have been Steve, so I can't take credit.
It was Steve.
So one thing I want to talk about. Okay, so per Steve's approval, there's something else I want to do. Is on Sundays at some point, I'd like to have a stream and have people like Socka and Nick Suter on, even Steve, that are more knowledgeable about philosophy. And I'm currently reading my way through the SEP for the first time,
Don't
and
forget
I just
Ozzy.
or Aussie, yeah. But I'm hoping to maybe have some hangouts like in the middle of the day or in the morning on Sundays, where we get together and learn more about philosophy from people that that know more about it than idiots like myself. And I wrote myself a note here too, and I'm getting feedback from somebody. I thank Steve at the top. I want to thank Steve at the end, but now that I look at my note, now I'm not so sure I want to thank Steve after this. But no, I do want to. I do want to thank Steve for allowing me to come on and do this. I hope I get to do it again. And I don't know how appropriate, but I'm gonna want to end with this quote that I found, and it might not apply with the discussion we had, towards the end. I thought of this quote more about the discussion about, when does criticism become bigotry, but I guess it applies all the way around. Civility is not saying negative or harsh things. It is not the absence of critical analysis. And that's a quote from Richard Dreyfuss. Good night, everybody.